Alright, hey, yo, what's going on, all my gamers, all my reaction gamers? Chat, I have to PNG it today because there's like no real good spot where I can record this video and go to work with a full battery, or come off of work and then, record it without being up insanely late. So I'm just going to PNG it because unless I wait for the weekend, which I'd rather just do this all in one go. And we're talking about this section, which will be the new me, Nanolis, and Shy Lily, and then the rest of it will be later. Chat, if you guys don't know, I have a Discord. I feel like I never mention it, so people never join it, but yeah, join in the description. There's a Discord to talk to me and send me links. Chat. Also, we're almost at 1,000 subs, so we got to get there and get monetized, because that'll be fun. Anyways, let's start the video.
One of Cinder's closest friends in the space. So what happened exactly, and how did Cinder hurt her just like she hurt Bao? Well,
Right.
Let's check it out. This section would be called V-Card and Numi's concert, and here's how Cinder would introduce it, saying, I messed up and hurt one of my friends, Numi. I agreed to be a part of her concert in New York City in February, but I let her down and canceled my performance. Then, when V-Card's launch date was delayed to her concert weekend, I put...
Also, this is kind of ironic, or I don't want to say ironic, but it's funny timing that as all this is going on and with the current, well, not current, but the controversy that just concluded with Bao, I got her 10 V card. Yeah, I got the Bowberry. It's kind of funny. It's also first edition, so that's kind of cool.
Business over my friendship when I chose to not even be there for her so I could be representing a company and streaming with Shy Lily, which I mistakenly planned on the same day. Although I did make it to Numi's show, I still made a decision that hurt her. All while preparing for her own concerts, Numi had been producing an original song for me since December. I was asking a lot of her when I wasn't doing the same in return. I made her feel more like a business partner than a friend. Numi has always been an incredible friend, and I was lucky to have her care about me. She always motivated and inspired me, especially when it came to music. I was the one who was a bad friend. Her messages are only here for context. I'm sorry to her again for this whole situation I caused. I didn't bring any of this up before because it wasn't something that involved anyone who had posted a document about me. I thought this was settled at the end of January 2025 privately between Numi and I. Apparently, I was expected to talk about it, and when I didn't, it was used against me. This situation was vaguely described to push the idea of my manipulation, avoidance of accountability, and sabotage of my friends. But none of that is true to what actually happened. It was caused by my own miscommunication.
Which again is kind of funny that she says it in that way, because throughout this entire video, I have not been shown anything where she is not that. A manipulator, someone who's avoiding accountability and sabotaging her friends. Now, one thing that has been shown, sure, I'll give her that, is that Nanolis was not, or at least from what I have seen over here in this part with Bao, Nanolis was not very transparent in her actual DMs with Red, but everything that I've seen so far with Red and what's it called, with Red and with Cinder is all been, okay, yeah, we did it. Okay, cool. Weren't you supposed to say you didn't do it? Why are you admitting to everything and showing everything that makes you guys look so bad? Like, literally, nothing has, like, absolved him of anything. And in fact, it actually makes him look worse because she took him back. I don't understand how this is supposed to work out. I don't know.
Fears,
maybe I'm doing it wrong,
and misplaced priorities. So I want to go through the entire series of events,
my cat's
my
loafing
thoughts,
right next to
feelings,
me.
and decisions leading up to V-Card's launch, my collab with Shy Lily, and Numi's concert in New York City. So this document is fairly short with 26 pages. What takes up most of these pages are images of DMs, but fundamentally speaking, it's a fairly simple issue to describe, so I'll be summing it up and reading DMs when necessary. From the start, this was pure miscommunication.
Also, I do want to say that people are trying to spin this narrative on Twitter. I've seen it only, obviously I've only seen a few of the replies and all that, is people are saying that Mujin is super biased, but I've not been seeing it this entire time, and they're like ignoring everything that Cinder has said and made it seem like, yeah, Cinder just admitted to everything and this is all good. Are we watching the same video? I don't think so.
Okay. On the 1st of September 2024, Numi would bring up the idea of a concert to Red. Numi was asking if Cinder could come in November 2024. Red would tell her to message Cinder directly since she was her friend.
This
Cinder
guy.
doesn't really remember if Red...
Am I right, chat? Oh my god, here we go with this
brought this up to her before
Sorry,
Numi
go ahead.
messaged her. But regardless, a couple months later, in November 2024, Numi would message Cinder and would invite her to her New York concert.
Okay.
Cinder would specify that she remembers that Numi had brought this up to her in person somewhere before this, but couldn't remember where, when, or even what was said. Numi most likely assumed that Cinder remembered the conversation they had IRL, so the only thing she sent her was, by the way, the New York concert will be February 1st if you'd still like to come. To which Cinder would say, I'd love to, where is it, and would get the details. A month later, on the 26th of December 2024, Numi would message Red about Cinder's attendance for the concert and would specifically say that she'd be performing with her on stage. At this point, Cinder would say that she was shocked when Red would tell her about this because she thought she'd be an audience member. However, instead of actually trying to clear it up with Numi, and hell, maybe even laugh about the misunderstanding, she chose to let Red handle everything for her and commit to singing. Cinder's logic here was that Numi had never messaged her directly about the concert, so you know what? Let Red handle it since he was talking to her about it anyway. The next day, on the 27th of December 2024, Cinder would bring up a collab idea over a new product launching with Gamer Subs, which was Vcard. It was supposed to release on the 17th of January 2025, and she wanted to make it happen around that time. Around January 6th, 2025, Red would message Numi about the hotel so he could start planning the trip for the concert, and Numi would reply. The next day, Cinder would message Shy Lily again about the Vcard collab to make sure that the initial plans were going to go through. They would have normally had the collab on the 18th of January, but then Vcard's release date would be delayed until the 31st, which would of course delay their collab as well since it was meant to be around the release date of the product. On the 10th of January 2025, Red would finally get back to Numi about her question about whether Cinder wanted to perform. He'd bring up the fact that Cinder isn't 100% sure about performing live, and would make a few different excuses as to why coming in person will prove tough, like how Cinder only likes to go on stage and cosplay, how they're worried about fans finding their car if they drive there, etc. Numi goes as far as proposing that Cinder could just join in virtually from her home as her Vtuber model. She didn't have to actually come to New York. She'd also
that would be
that
really
she doesn't
sick,
want to pressure Cinder to do anything that makes her uncomfortable. Now, I really have to point out here, Numi reiterates this multiple times, and unlike Red's discussions with Sacramore, she wasn't guilt-trippy at all. Red would then ask who's coming to New York other than Cinder, and when Numi would say that multiple of her friends were flying out, Red felt pressured, saying, oh, so we're the bad friends. Even as Numi
Oh my god. I hate this guy so much. You're such a dumbass. Oh my god. Okay, maybe he's kidding. Let me read that.
You guys don't.
Let me read
Red
that for myself. Let me read that for myself. Oh, where is it?
Pressured, saying, "Oh, so we're the bad."
Okay, it looks like they're saying it as a joke. It looks like Red's saying it as a meme. Okay, maybe it's not that bad. Yeah, maybe
friends.
not.
Even as Numi
They put a kick
reiterated,
W
you
after.
guys don't have to feel obligated to go to either, by the way. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm pressuring y'all at all.
The
I
kick
know
W
everyone is
makes me
tired
think it's
from
not
2024
that
travels.
serious.
And Red would say, well, now we're like the bad friends if we don't. Numi would again reiterate, I don't care. If you guys don't want to come,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. And yet Red would still insist, even though he knew that Cinder was very uncomfortable performing on stage. On the same night, Numi would message Cinder about matching t-shirts, and again, Cinder says nothing about her being uncomfortable regarding singing live. In the document she admits.
Wait, what was the end of that first message? If y'all don't want to go out, you don't have to. Like, it really isn't a big deal. I don't think it's going either. So y'all would be fine. Or, I just remembered a few friends in LA I didn't invite. Thank you for reminding me. Our bad friends too. Got it. He's like joking in a way that it makes me want to just like let it slide. Like, I gotta be charitable in some places, right? I know I'm playing hardball, but at the same time, I have to be charitable in some places. I think he's just kidding. I think question mark.
Was very uncomfortable performing on stage. On the same night, Numi would message Cinder about matching t-shirts, and again, Cinder says nothing about her being uncomfortable regarding singing live. In the document she admits she should have just gone to Numi to talk to her about this, but she didn't. A few days later, on the 13th of
Again, here's the thing, right? Maybe they are just that incompetent, where they're not asking each other or telling each other anything, right? Like, if they're this bad with communication, I almost want to believe them when they say that Red and her didn't have communications when it comes to the serious stuff, because they're like they live with each other, they're right next to each other or something. I don't know the distance between them. And you couldn't figure this out. You never brought it up to her. Somehow this doesn't get discussed. I almost don't want to believe them. Right? Like, to have this stuff work out in the way that she says, they have to be insanely incompetent with communication with each other about the business and about any upcoming events. And as well, it's on the calendar, so they must never check that calendar this entire time. All these things have to be true for this to be like this. And if that's true, maybe it's not that crazy to believe that they're just that incompetent or incompetent about other stuff, right? When they're saying that, oh, we didn't know because we didn't communicate it. That almost makes it a lot more believable, but that's so much worse for them.
January 2025, Cinder would ask Red to message Numi on her behalf to let her know that she isn't comfortable singing live, but would still be showing up to the concert to support her.
That's
the excuse
cool.
Red would make up was she's nervous to sing with a live mic, to which Numi would say, no worries, with a smiley face. In the document, Cinder would outline 4 reasons as to why she chose not to perform. The first one being, I was too anxious to get on stage and sing with a live microphone. This was the biggest reason I made the decision to not do the show. She'd even show us DMs with another friend back in April 2024 of her almost bailing out on her performance at the WeepCon concert because of her being nervous.
I think that's totally fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. If you're too, because being on stage, like as someone who's performed on stage before, even when I was younger, it's pretty nerve-wracking, right? Like you can practice in your room and, you know, or like grab your phone, pretend it's a mic, and trying to go over your lyrics and all that. It's pretty nerve-wracking. So I can get behind that. Sure, I get that. As long as it was communicated, right? As long as it's communicated, I'll let that slide.
Of her almost bailing out on her performance at the WeepCon concert because of her being nervous. The second reason was she didn't really want to make a public appearance on stage without being in cosplay. It took a lot of space in her luggage. It was a hassle to bring with her. She still would have been okay just wearing her Cinder wig, but that didn't fix her problem with singing live. The third reason would be, I didn't think my part of the show was that important or integral to the concert overall, and that pulling out wouldn't have been that much of an inconvenience to Numi. As far as either of us knew, there weren't any songs planned for me to do yet, and the set list was done in December.
Right.
Sexy Drug was the only song Numi and I had covered together, so I assumed that would have been the only one. Any other songs in the set list that may have been intended for me to perform were never communicated. She suggested to Red that I could perform one of my songs, but I only had 2 songs to choose from. Even if we sang them all, that was a total of 3 songs.
Okay.
I didn't think it'd be a problem to fill in that 1 to 3 song gap in the set list if she even had to. I don't know anything about the prep work that goes into planning a concert though. And finally, 4, Red told me that Numi reassured him that I shouldn't feel pressured or obligated to perform or even go to the concert. 3 days before this furthered the idea that my guest performance must have not been that integral to the overall concert, and it would be okay to her if I pulled out.
Okay.
Cinder would then say I kept putting off making a decision because of my anxiety of performing versus the stress of letting down Numi. I should have made my choice sooner and messaged her myself to talk about it with her instead of Red. And she never messaged me to ask about my decision either. Maybe it would have been able to make something work for me instead of letting my fears get the better of me. Red and I were still going to the concert even if I wasn't performing. Bao would end up filling in my spot in the show at the last minute, being a much better friend than I was. Gamer subs, V-Card, and my collab with
Shut the hell up. Why did you word it like that? That's so... I don't know, it's dismissive, manipulative. I don't know what the word is. I don't think it's that deep. It's just weird to say it like that. Oh, Bao filled in last minute for me. I guess she's just a better friend. Sure. You know what? At this point, I just want to agree with you. I don't even care. That was just such a left-handed comment. I just want to agree with you that, yeah, she's just a better friend than you. I think the thing is, like, there's no excuse for the communication to not be handled, right? If this is days, you're having days where you can have communication of this happening, and you talking to her and telling her that, yeah, I can't make it or I don't want to do it or something. So it's like Red should have talked to you or him in this entire time leading up to it. So again, I have to go back. Are you guys that incompetent with scheduling and talking with each other? The answer has to be yes to let this just go. Again, it's not a big deal. Bao filled up the concert because she's a better friend than you and you suck and you rather not put in effort for your friends. Her words, not mine. It's just so weird, dude. Go ahead.
Shy Lily had nothing to do with my decision not to perform,
Okay.
only about not going to the show later.
Sure.
My collab with Shy Lily was not scheduled at this time, and absolutely no way was I trying to somehow sabotage Numi and her concert. So yeah, this is definitely unfortunate so far. Cinder just thought that she wasn't that important to Numi, right? But this entire stress and anxiety and her saying that she didn't want to let down Numi, I don't know, it felt more like it was performative. Numi tried her best to accommodate her, saying she can cancel, there was no worries. But Cinder kept talking about letting her down as if she was her boss. In reality, a true friendship means you could be honest with each other. It also didn't help that most of the communication was done through Red. Cinder
Again, if the thing about the language and how she's talking, and had she learned her lesson and really decided to be and really like sorry and all that, or whatever we're looking for in this document, and clearing things up, you would have wrote this differently. Why even now, when you're writing this later, you're still making snide little comments like, oh, I get, like, Bao would end up filling my spot last minute, being a much better friend than I was. It feels like you're still bitter about it, or like, I don't want to say bitter. It feels like you didn't learn your lesson and you still don't get whatever.
wasn't even the one who told Numi that she couldn't sing. In any case, a few days
don't
would
like
pass,
it.
and on the 16th of January 2025, Cinder would officially make her announcement that she became a partial owner of GamerSupps and would single-handedly start to pressure herself to live up to the expectations of what a GamerSupps partial owner should do. This,
That
of
didn't
course, would
last
be in
long.
reference to Shy Lily, the first VTuber to ever become a part owner of GamerSupps.
Oh!
Vcard was about to be the company's first massive drop of the year, and she, of course, wanted to be present for that. More specifically, in a collab with Shy
I do want to say this, dude. Vcard is so cool to watch IRL. Not the gameplay, but people legitimately will just go up to the GamerSupps booth, and it's cool to see. Like, everyone is just talking about the cards and trading cards and like showing each other what they have, and it's just cool to see. I like it.
Lily. In her own words,
It's a
she would
really
say this would be a
cool-
great way to do that.
really
together,
cool part of the
two
community.
VTuber part owners side by side, while sharing something we both were excited about. This is why she had
Right.
reached out to her about this in December. On the 22nd of January 2025, in her song production server, Numi would tell Redacted and Cinder that the shows that are coming up will affect her schedule around the song she was making for Cinder. We can see Red talking about the release date for the song, but eventually they pushed it back to her birthday sometime after this. A few days would pass by again, and on January 20th,
No, what does it say? We've been arguing about lyric changes. We'll give you guys our thoughts tonight. Originally, we said we're Valentine's release, but you and our kids schedule.
they pushed it back to her birthday sometime after this. A few days would pass by again, and on January 26th, Cinder would tell Shy Lily that she is still down to do a collab a day after Vcard's release. This confirmation would effectively be throwing Numi's concert under the bus. Cinder would
Right.
specify that Red had nothing to do with this decision. She was the one who had chosen business over friendship. Shy Lily could have very easily rescheduled or been more flexible, but it was Cinder that confirmed the date with her and wanted February 1st. The
What am I doing, bro? I feel like where does it get better?
day in which Numi would be performing her concert.
Yeah.
From Cinder's perspective, Red telling her that Numi said it was okay if she couldn't go to the concert was also a factor in her decision. She'd say in her document, "I'd come to find out that this was just Numi being Numi, and it really did mean a lot to her that we'd be there." She'd then continue and say, "My brain goblins told me Numi would have lots of our other friends there cheering her on, and that my presence wouldn't be missed if I wasn't. I never told this to her either." So on January 27th, Cinder
Sure.
would message Numi and tell her, "Hey, sorry I can't make it to your concert. I didn't expect Vcard's release date to get pushed back to your concert's date, and I feel obligated to be around for the launch weekend as a GamerSupps owner now. I'm sorry, I love you so much and I miss you." The next day, though, on January 28th, Red would find a last-minute train ticket to New York that would allow her and him to show up to the concert as it's starting. Numi wouldn't reply to Cinder's initial message, and the next day she'd message her saying this, "Hey, I think I found a train that can leave later. Red and I are trying to figure it out. When does your show start?" Red would message the same thing to Numi, and still no reply. On
Okay.
that same day, Cinder would ask Lily if they could start their collab an hour earlier so that she can make it to the train. She didn't tell Lily about the concert, she just wanted everything to work out. And to Shy Lily, that was completely fine. On that day, she would stay up very late, until close to 4 a.m. She'd make a tweet talking about how she feels like she's been neglecting her friends, and how she was very stressed about this, adding, "Things have been so crazy in my life, but I'm trying my best." Then, in the evening of January 29th, Numi would finally respond to Cinder, and it would be a message loaded with a lot of emotions, thoughts, and feelings. Before we get into that, Cinder would say, I've never been able to open up about my feelings, anxiety, self-esteem, or insecurities, and I never even tried to go to Numi and talk things out sooner. She was getting mixed signals from Red and I wish I handled communicating with her better. I think it's really important that we read Numi's message, even though it's a bit lengthy, because it has a lot to do with how she felt in regards to Cinder and how many of Cinder's friends were feeling too, including Bao. She'd say, hey Cinder, I wanted to apologize for my late reply. I was in the mountains for a few days after the concert and wanted to focus on spending time with friends that were here before really checking my message.
What the hell? What? Sorry, that caught me off guard. Bro, she was out there having a training montage. That's kind of sick. I'm so sorry. Something about that just really threw me off guard. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I appreciate you trying to make the time to see the concert.
Yeah.
I understand you have been working hard and want to focus on your business, so I wouldn't ever hold it against you if you felt obligated to be there for V-Card. What did disappoint me, though, was when I asked you about the concert months ago and you said yes and kept reassuring your commitment to the concert until last week. I understand every single anxiety and fear that comes with performing and going out of your comfort zone as well, so I completely felt your reasoning and would never want to put you in a situation where you felt uncomfortable. What made me sad was that I had to hear it from Red and not from you about all your thoughts. While you were texting...
How does this go on for months and you never had this talk? Please. You are not that stupid, are you? Bro. I've told stories to the same person twice. You're telling me in months you couldn't tell each other about this? What the holy... I am flabbergasted. I am beholden of myself. I don't even think that's how you say that, but I'm just so bewildered and perplexed how you went months and you two didn't talk about it. How is Numi getting two different... okay, I believe it. You know what? I believe it. Numi, or Cinder and Red, I believe it. They never communicated with each other. You're absolutely right. I believe it now. 100%. These guys never, whenever any of the controversy happened, they never talked to each other. I believe it. They're this fucking stupid. 100%. I believe it.
Me about being excited for the concert and off collabs. Even when checking my messages when I got home yesterday, Red was the one telling me about you feeling guilty, whereas you were telling me you felt obligated to be around for the launch of Gamer Subs.
Oh,
the messages between you both were completely different, and ultimately it felt as though I was being treated like a business partner rather than a best friend. Right, this is important to specify. To Numi, Cinder was a best...
Hey. It's just business, baby. That's all it ever was.
Friend, not just any friend, not a coworker, not an acquaintance, a best friend. Anyway, she'd continue. I truly understand all the reasoning, but it had me feeling frustrated and confused about whether or not you truly cared about how important this was to me, or how much Blank and I spent planning the New York concert with you as a guest in our minds and having little real time to find a replacement. I didn't hear anything from you or any of your actual thoughts or fears. I only heard about some feelings from Red. I want to apologize if I ever made you feel hesitant to share your feelings, or if I gave off the impression that I'd be anything other than empathetic towards the reasons I was given. But I truly hope in the future we can be more open to communicate our feelings so that the other feels less nervous or upset about things. I know you've never given me a reason to doubt the strength of our friendship until this year, so I want to trust and believe that it isn't as bad as I was imagining when I received the messages from Red. I hope that things can be okay, and that you know I'll still be here to listen to you if you ever want to talk about it all more. So as we can see...
And isn't that a shame? Isn't that a fucking shame that Numi at the end of this still wants to give you the benefit of the doubt? That's a shame. That's a shame if I've ever seen one. I hate that. It really sucks because Numi is she from when I seen her, you know, she was wrapped around Shy Lily. I don't know why. I didn't question it. I just asked if she could sign my badge. I didn't want to interrupt their moment. She seems like such a sweetheart. She is such a loving person, and imagine that. Imagine this is how you treat her. That's a goddamn shame is what that is.
Things can be okay, and that you know I'll still be here to listen to you if you ever want to talk about it all more. So as we can see, Cinder in her mind so far, I mean, this wasn't a big deal, right? Like, oh, she can find a replacement. It was probably not a big deal for me to perform.
That is, it's insane to put on a show, by the way. it's not like a small thing, and especially a concert, and especially one that you have to put on for yourself. Normally, a management company would handle that, but it's like, dude, everything has to be meticulous because you're like renting out a space. You have to fill it to capacity. You have to make it worth it for both the venue and for yourself and for the people. Like, a lot of things go into making a show. I've never hosted a show, but I've known people who have, and I've been added to shows and stuff like that. So it's like, I know how stressful and awful it has to be, right? So it's insane that she thought it was going to be no big deal.
Performing the concert anyway.
I mean, I understand if she thought it was going to be no big deal, though. I at the same time, I do kind of get it, just because it's like, I'm talking as someone who's been around that, right, for hip hop and stuff like that, right? But I just hope that she can recognize how like crazy it is to put on stuff like that, because it is pretty nuts. You know what I'm saying? Putting on shows, it's no small feat.
It was only like 1 or 3 songs, and she'll probably have many
especially
more
a
friends
concert
there anyway.
where
She
it's
doesn't
like
need
a
me.
banquet
It could
hall
be
or something.
insecurity. It could be the idea of work taking over your mind. It could be many factors. But there's a huge difference to how Numi perceived their friendship versus how Cinder perceived their friendship.
Right.
Right. To Numi, this was a best friend. It would have meant the world if she was there. To Cinder, she has a bunch of other friends. Yeah, she's a good friend, but I just can't make it. I'm sure she can find a replacement.
Sucks, man.
Cinder would reply saying, "It's okay, Numi. I hope you had a good time with everyone after this past weekend. I'm really sorry for putting you in this situation and making you feel so frustrated about everything. I've been so stressed out with the things going on in my life and career lately that I hadn't stopped for a second to consider how my actions were making you feel." She would agree with Numi that Red should be the one telling her about how she feels about things, that she's a friend and she deserves to hear things from her mouth directly. She would say how it's always been extremely hard for her to voice how she's feeling with people in general, especially when she's anxious about the situation. She'd reiterate that she wasn't comfortable with her singing skills at all, especially in front of a live audience, and that she let down Numi when she needed her. She didn't realize that her appearance was that big of a part of the concert. In the next paragraph, she'd type in the apology.
The thing about it is that you can feel that way, and you can be anxious and all this stuff. That is absolutely 1,000,000% okay. It will never not be okay to feel this way and to be this anxious and act like, maybe I will drop out. But talk to him. Just say anything. Say, hey, I'm not feeling it like this. I was going to say even Red could have said it, but literally just anybody, bro. Just say it. Just reach out, bro. As someone who's... Trust me, as someone who knows how it feels to not be reached out to and how much that sucks, just reach out. Just do it. It's totally fine.
It would be highlighted in the document, saying, "Now that I'm a part GamerSup's owner, I feel a lot of pressure to live up to what Lily is for them and to the community. My announcement didn't really make the splash I thought it would, and V-Card is probably their biggest new drop this year.
Oh yeah, dude, it
I
is
made plans to
huge.
collab with Lily the day after V-Card's launch
Dude,
day,
V-Card
which would
is
have been the
huge.
18th. But because the launch was pushed back, the collab was pushed to this weekend. I didn't really know how to tell her no, so I planned it as early in the day as possible to be able to make the late train to New York City. She then confirmed that she is coming to Numi's show, and said that she could try her best to perform their cover song together to make it up to her based on the planning process, right? If it's possible to actually find a replacement or not. She would then say, "I'm really sorry about all this, Numi." In the document, she would specify what she meant when she said she didn't think the announcement made the splash she thought it would, saying this was such a major and massive accomplishment to me, and it felt like a lot of people, including some of my closest friends.
Wait, what? I told Numi my part ownership announcement didn't make the splash I thought it would. This is such a major, massive accomplishment to me, and I felt like people, including some of my closest friends, didn't notice or care. This made me put more pressure on myself to take up. I'm gonna be so transparent and honest. I didn't even know she was a part owner until like, oh my God, was it around this time? Was it when this whole thing happened? Like, I was not the biggest Cinder fan, not because I hated her or anything like that. I was just like watching a lot of things at once, and also like, you know, when you're a content creator, you only get so much time and working at the same time. So I choose very closely who I want to watch. The biggest time I took notice of Cinder is when she had an IRL concert, and her Biggle Physics matched up to her model. So I was like, oh, maybe I should watch Cinder, and I started watching her. So I maybe just clips though. I'm just saying that I had no idea that she was part owner. Shy Lily becoming part owner was definitely a much bigger deal because Lily is like, she's just massive, right? And also, I'm a bigger fan than Lily than I am of her, and I'm also a big fan of Russian Badger, and Russian Badger was like also talking about it. So that's how I knew about Lily doing it and not of Cinder doing it.
Didn't notice or care. Now again, Numi would reply with a very lengthy message, but again, I really have to emphasize it's very important because it shows not just how she felt, but how multiple of Cinder's friends felt, including Bao. She'd say, all I really wanted in all of this was to hear how you felt, so I really appreciate you being open and honest with me despite everything. I was given so many different reasons, and when you brought up feeling obligated to be there for the V-card thing...
Wait, sorry, let's start that over again. I apologize for that, chat. One more time.
The splash she thought it would, saying this was such a major and massive accomplishment to me, and it felt like a lot of people, including some of my closest friends, didn't notice or care.
I did
now,
it!
Again, Numi would reply with a very
here we go.
lengthy message, but again, I really have to emphasize it's very important because it shows not just how she felt, but how multiple of Cinder's friends felt, including Bao. She'd say, all I really wanted in all of this was to hear how you felt, so I really appreciate you being open and honest with me despite everything. I was given so many different reasons, and when you brought up feeling obligated to be there for the V-card thing, I think it really made me feel sad because you didn't acknowledge anything prior to that. It was the first I heard from you regarding the concert, and hearing you connect the reason to business, I felt like I meant less to you. As disappointing as it was, I truly just wanted to hear from you, so thank you again for opening up in the previous message. Red is a nice friend to me, and I understand for a lot of business things it's better to go through him, but this was just something very deep and personal to me and something that you committed to with me when I asked you in person. So it meant a lot more to hear from you in that respect. The different responses I'd get from the both of you were very confusing, but most of all, it left me confused with how you truly felt regarding it all. I hope from this you can understand that I'm here for you too. We do different things, but we're both in the same space dealing with a lot of similar difficulties. I'll always be here to extend an ear or a hand if you need me, especially if it's relating to music. One of the reasons I kept asking you if you were sure about the show, aside from the prep for everything, was because I wanted to know if you were having any second thoughts, or if you needed to vent any frustrations or fears regarding performing. I've told you this, but I had stage fright for years because of a traumatizing first experience, and I only gained confidence through VTubing and making music with blank. Every single show I've done was either ruined or messy in some way, but I've still managed to push forward and get over a lot of my fears.
Boy, I feel that one. I still have stage fright when it comes to singing. I only have stage fright when it comes to singing. I definitely got over it. I definitely got over it when I was a rapper. I definitely got over it in that time, but for singing, I still don't like singing in public because of like being like when I was laughed at as a kid. It's kind of silly, I know, but like I can't get over it. I don't know why. And then it's like I feel like I can never get better at it. So it's always just been something that, like I always say, if I could sing, I would have never been a rapper.
When Red was telling me you were anxious, I wish you could have brought it up with me sooner. It's scary opening up to people, especially after you told me how other friends were to you in the past, but I promise you I would have been here to listen to you and hear about everything and reassure you that it would be okay. If afterwards you still felt too scared, we could have figured it out and found a proper replacement without any added stress from both of our ends. In the next 3 paragraphs, she would reiterate that she's there for her if she needs her, that she's there to listen, that she's there to support her. She empathized with her situation with gamer subs, especially in the position she's in, and she never wanted Cinder to stress so much over this concert. She realizes that this is an important weekend for her, but to Cinder too. But the next couple sentences would be really, really important, right?
Okay.
Numi would say, despite the fears I've had over our friendship, I have tried my best to silence any kind of demons I've had telling me the worst case scenario. I remember the person you were when we met, and I want to fully believe that you're still that person that I know would be there for me and her friends and her community. And like I said, you don't have to do anything to make things up to me. I truly just wanted to hear your thoughts. It's okay. Thank you again, and I accept your apology.
Dude, she is clearly spiraling in a way that her friends just don't like, and I'm supposed to believe that it didn't happen. Everyone, including Cinder herself, is telling us who she is and the kind of person that she is. But I somehow have to not believe her. With her own words, mind you. I don't know, man. Maybe Twitter got a different video. Maybe Mujin put out 2 different videos. Maybe that's what it is.
So her saying, despite the fears I've had over our friendship, the demon she tried to silence in regards to Cinder. This is an extremely important detail because this was exactly how Bao felt too. Since the end of 2024 leading up to 2025, Cinder would get extremely busy with work and would start to truly neglect her friends. Numi was pretty much revealing to us here that these demons were in her head for a while and she tried to silence them for as long as she could. Just like Bao, always trying to give Cinder the benefit of the doubt, putting herself in her shoes and trying to empathize. Obviously, that's a very big deal. It shows that you're neglecting your friends, miscommunicating, etc., etc. And to Cinder...
Dude, everyone gives Cinder the benefit of the doubt. I'm noticing a pattern here.
She'd admit that this whole situation was a wake-up call. She realigned her priorities, and she told herself that she couldn't let something like this ever happen again.
Spoiler alert, it did!
She'd only reply 2 hours later to Numi because she broke down crying after reading her message. They'd figure out the details, and they would conclude that she was coming. So the next day, on February 1st, 2025, Cinder and Shy Lily would do the unboxing collab for V-Card.
Nice.
Cinder would share her DMs with Shy Lily, showing that they were friendly. I mean, everything was going well.
Cool.
And both Red and Cinder would finally be able to make it to the concert in time right after the collab. They wore their matching shirts together, and they spent the rest of the weekend there with friends. At this point, Cinder would claim that she was already planning to be at Numi's next concert in the US, if not both of them. She simply wasn't going to let Numi down again. These two shows ended up happening at the end of July, and she wasn't there for obvious reasons, because she was canceled. This would mark the end of the Numi section, and like I said, it's pretty important in parallel to what happened to Bao. Even though Numi had, essentially suffered a bit less than Bao, I think Cinder was still communicating with her fairly regularly. She didn't neglect her as hard, but I mean, Numi was aware of what was going on with Bao. They were truly trying to find the best case scenario while trying their best to give Cinder the benefit of the doubt. Of course, that would all come crashing down though on April 2025, when Nanoless, otherwise known as
let's
Nano,
go!
would post her document.
It all got worse. Let's fucking go!
About Cinder. Let's head to her section in the document.
Okay.
This section would be around 203 pages, one of the more lengthier ones of this document. It would start off with Cinder posting the tweet that Nanoless had made and saying this. Nano's document claimed both Red and I manipulated, used, and dragged her into drama, while slandering multiple VTubers, including our friends. These claims were the basis for everything else publicly released afterwards, documents from half a dozen people and many others tweeting their grievances with me. It all hinged on Nano's document being posted and its validity. When I wrote my initial apology in April 2025, I said I was not fully aware of the extent of Red's manipulation over Nano's commission decisions. When I wrote this poorly worded sentence, I hadn't seen any of these DMs. I was in a panic and didn't think Nano would be lying about anything. But now that I've read Red's DMs myself, I can say that Nano was not manipulated, abused, used, lied to, mistreated, expected to take action over any drama she was told about, or incapable of making her own decisions regarding her commissions and clientele. She was never forced to do or not do anything, has always been in control of her own choices, and always had the ability to say no. She was met with understanding and faced no repercussions professionally or personally from either of us when she did. Nano's messages were read, were deceitfully presented to push a narrative that never happened. I don't believe Nano ever showed the full context of her messages with Red to my friends. Her claims were backed by Shy Lily, and I believe they were misled into blindly supporting her. Nano was a
I do believe, until we go through this, right, I'm just saying this here. I kind of want to give my thoughts on this before we get through the entirety of it, because this is my mindset going into this. I do believe her. I believe Cinder. I believe that Nano was not pushed to the extent that she was talking about from what I have seen over here in the Bao section. From what I've seen from Bao, she kind of cut off and made her own context into things. However, although it is fake, or not, I don't want to say fake, although it is misleading, everything else has been spot on so far, right? Although it came from lies, everything afterwards has been true, and that is not a good look. It's also not a good look on her. I want to say that very clear. Nano does not look good at this at all as of this time being, as of 2 hours in. Now let's get into her part, and let's see how this goes.
Close friend who we respected and was a massive part of my own success. I've only ever praised her privately and publicly. There was nothing she could do for me to hold anything against her or just to stop working with
That's
her.
me,
Red and I always encouraged Nano to do what was best for her, not us. Red, who handled our plans with her, made sure to work around her schedule, push projects back if she needed more time on them or to take a break, and give her first priority on projects she was interested in. He trusted her, and the extent he lied to her about the other people involved was in telling her his own genuine thoughts, observations, and experiences with them as he knew them, the same way my accusers did to the public with how they assumed how Red and I had to have operated together. The claim that Red and I worked to sabotage projects
which again is so funny, because it's like, I almost have to believe them. that they didn't. They what is it? The same way his is how they must not operate like a functioning person with functioning brain cells. Because from what I saw in the Numi section, if you had even a shred of communication, none of the Numi section would have happened. You guys are so incompetent. It's almost funny. But I gotta believe him. I almost have to believe her when she says this.
Nano had is a lie. We both would praise her for the work she did for other people, and I've always celebrated and supported new Nano model siblings when they debuted. Even if Red was really asking Nano to cancel every model she had, it was ultimately still her choice to do it or not. But all of the blame for her actions was somehow put on me. This next paragraph is in purple because it's going to be mentioned multiple times over the document. I don't see a reason to read it. And she'd continue, We've worked with Nano for 4 years. She is an incredible artist who I've treasured working alongside for my entire career. I put my faith in her at the start when we were both much smaller creators, and she saved me from a year-long struggle to get my first model, and she's been with me every step of my journey since.
Sure.
I wanted Nano to be a part of anything she could, and chose to make her artwork the backbone of my brand. I love and appreciate every single thing she's done for me, and I'm proud of everything I've been able to do for her. In April, I believe Nano found herself in a situation she couldn't back out of, and then chose to do what would result in the most beneficial outcome for herself: hide the truth.
Ooh.
Below are a large portion of Nano's DMs with Red and I over the past 2.5 years that show any situations brought up in Nano's document in full context. Show the relationship we had with her, how she felt about us and other people involved in everything, and any other relevant conversations that weren't included in what was posted to the public. I've also included some of my own messages with her and some messages with other people. Some of these DMs are repeated and included in the following sections of this document. Nano's profile picture is different in some of these screenshots because of them being taken at different times throughout making this document.
Okay.
So yeah, as I said in the beginning, this document was written over not weeks, but most likely months. All right, this took a long time to make. The first thing that would take place in this document would be on the 23rd of January 2023. During this time, Red would be asking Nano not to work with Spite, another VTuber sharing a similar design to Cinder, who debuted and was a content creator before her. Red would only tell Cinder about this after the fact. She claims that she didn't know, and yet, when he actually told her, she was completely okay with it. She didn't really express any opposition. Cinder would then say that, interestingly enough, these DMs were not included in Nano's or Spite's documents at all back during April 2025.
Wait. Red asked Nano not to work with Spite, and she gladly agreed not to. Red not only told me about it was not something we talked about before, but I was okay with it. Nano never said anything about this to me, and we talked about it outside. I shared the feelings and expressed. Also, wait, what? Since they didn't say anything about it, I chose not to either. I lied about not knowing Red's conversations with Nano about Spite. To try and not make things worse for myself, I accidentally alluded to it because of the state I was in. They're just telling us the truth. Also, you were okay with screwing over Spite. Is that what you're saying? Let me read that one more time just to make sure. Red asked Nano not to work with Spite, and she gladly agreed not to. That's fine. Cool. Red not only told me about this after it was done, it wasn't something we talked about beforehand, but I was okay with it. Surely there is a crumb, a morsel of you guys not being pieces of shit. Surely, right?
She asks why, and then says, since they didn't say anything about it, I chose not to either. I lied about not knowing about Red's conversations with Nano about Spite to try and not make things worse for myself, but I still accidentally alluded to it because of the state I was in. She's referring to the apology she made back in April, saying, once again, I had no involvement or knowledge of Red bringing up Spite to Nano in 2023. My only personal involvement with excluding someone specific from working with Nano was Silver. So obviously this is a pretty big revelation. I thought the apology back in April 2025 was horrendous. I didn't hide that at all. It was very badly written. It was very sporadic. I mean, it was clear that she was in very bad mental headspace, but I really didn't think that it could get worse, and it somehow just did. Yeah, she straight up lied. And yes, it's bad even if you were to look at this objectively.
Dude,
Red would
come
comment in the document
on.
saying Cinder was upset over what we both thought was Spite copying her. I saw Spite interacting with Nano, possibly with the intent of trying to work with her. This was the logic. And would then say, I've never talked about Spite with any other artist, and I'm sorry that I asked this of Nano. So this overall gives us a good idea about how even back in January 2023, both Red and Cinder displayed paranoia in regards to others. Cinder would search up the name.
That would then make it seem like, that would make it what's the word I'm looking for? You guys inadvertently involved her in it. Although Nano didn't stop, she was now. You guys did coerce her into being involved with it, right? You shouldn't have brought that to her. You shouldn't have asked her to do it. However, nothing was forcing her to say yes, unless it's like the pressure from you guys, like of knowing, like we would have to be so charitable to Nano to make it seem like she wasn't involved. At this point, she's involved. That's not your fault. That's her fault. However, you guys are still terrible people for doing this.
Spite in her DMs with Nano to prove that she had never spoken to her about it, that it was only Red that mentioned her. The next few pages in this document would be just very...
But that's the thing. I believe you. I 100% believe you. That doesn't mean you were unknowing. You were unknowing about this. You 100% knew. You just admitted it. You showing me this means nothing, right? Because you literally told us that you knew about it in some way, shape, or form. Just because you didn't talk to her directly doesn't mean you weren't involved in some way. Could have stopped it. You could have stopped it. She could have stopped it. You could have stopped it. Neither of you stopped it. You just let Red ask that, and everyone said yes, involved. You didn't reprimand Red, you didn't stop Red, you didn't tell Nano never mind. You were still complicit in this happening.
To her about it, that it was only Red that mentioned her. The next few pages in this document would be just very normal, uneventful conversations between Red and Nano. This was in an effort to show us that Red and Nano only spoke respectfully to each other, and that Red was very accommodating to her, regardless of whether she needed to change around schedules or couldn't finish something on time. There will be around half a dozen
doesn't
pages
mean anything.
But then we'd find...
That doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe actually. Does it? I'm trying to find a way in which this is even, because this is kind of a who asked moment, but I'm trying to be charitable to you guys. I shouldn't, but I am. When would this actually matter? I don't know. Anyways, go ahead.
Ourselves back right where we started. This paranoia that Red had displayed about Spite on January 2023 would actually continue in May 2023, and this time it would be about Silvervale. Red would ask Nano about when she made Silvervale's first model because him and Cinder was starting to grow suspicious that it had to do with Cinder in her debut a couple months earlier. Their logic was that Nano wasn't well known as a model artist in the summer of 2022, and had only done 3 models at that point, including Cinder's. So this was them pretty much implying that they thought she was copying Cinder because Cinder was doing so good.
Right? Oh my gosh.
There's going to be more about this topic. I mean, way more in Silver's section of the document, which is also over 200 pages. So overall, during the month of May 2023, Cinder was working with Nano to make her art for her GamerSupps cup. She really wanted to be the first GamerSupps cup with Nano's art on it. She also really wanted to be the first full-color cup, something that the company was still experimenting with. However, she'd find out through her GamerSupps manager that the reason why the company even started coming up with the idea of making a full-color art piece on a GamerSupps cup was because of the piece that Nano had drawn for Silvervale, something that hadn't released yet. When finding out about this news, both Cinder and Red tried to rush Nano to finish her art ASAP so that she could be the first creator to have a cup with GamerSupps that had Nano's art on it before Silvervale. This was because she wanted to feel special, but also because she didn't want people to compare her to Silvervale like they've been doing for a while now.
Surely nothing bad ever came of that, right? Surely this weird obsession with Silvervale ended perfectly fine and they all talked about it and it all just went totally fine. Surely, right? Surely? Question mark?
At the same time, what was even worse is that in Cinder's opinion, both her art and Silver's art was fairly similar, with both of them making a heart shape with their hands. Nano would of course wonder why they were rushing this cup so quickly. This would be when Red would reveal to her for the first time about the unspoken drama between Cinder and Silvervale, and says that, for example, Silver was rated by Cinder multiple times on Twitch, and she's the only one that Silver doesn't thank by name. He'd also mentioned that Silver refuses to acknowledge...
Wait, one more time?
This would be when Red would... In Cinder's opinion, both her art and Silver's art was fairly similar, with both of them making a heart shape with their hands.
I hate you. I can't. I can't get over this, bro. What the hell, man? It's my, I mean, it's my bias, right? I'm biased in this situation because I love Silver, and I hate seeing everything that she's gone through because of some like bad actors and some bad people, and obviously she's one of them. So it's just like, I hate you, bro. Why are you like this? What made you this way? I'm like genuinely asking.
Nana would of course wonder why they were rushing this cup so quickly. This would be
Yeah.
when Red would reveal to her for the first time about the unspoken drama between Cinder and Silvervale, and says that, for example,
No, it's not one spoken. It's not unspoken. It's one-sided. You guys are weirdly obsessed with Silvervale, and it's so weird. I want you to know how unhinged you are.
Silver was rated by Cinder multiple times on Twitch, and she's the only one that Silver doesn't thank by name.
Oh, boo-hoo. Oh my god. You're so unhinged. She had drama with Silver. There's been a misunderstanding, and there's been a lot of the internet thinks Cinder comments basically confirmed that Silver doesn't like Cinder because of it. Cinder rated multiple times. Silver was again. This is you. You're fighting demons, and you expect the other. This is you on some wake up because you were cheating me in my. You were cheating on me in my dreams, head ass. That's you. I'm trying to read more into this. There's more instances like that, and Silver refuses to follow, acknowledge, or interact with Silver. So what? So what? Who cares? Have you never not a friend before? Have you never been told no? Oh my god. Ironically, Cinder is only Cinder because of Silver, but not because she copied her. The complete opposite. History, lore, time before Cinder was Cinder. She was done on an ASMR channel, which is all still does sometimes. I need a. I've never wanted. Listen, I don't advocate for anything. However, something about Red just makes me want to go upside his head. It pisses me off to no end. I can't get over. And she took him back, by the way. I want this to be completely known, and he still works with her.
He'd also mentioned that Silver refuses to acknowledge Cinder by not following her anywhere because he's assuming that Silver dislikes her for copying her. This is when he would really give her the entire backstory, right? How Cinder wasn't even Cinder in the beginning. Her Vtuber model was meant to be her ASMR persona called Tashi. How she then became a hellhound purely because she didn't want to copy Silvervale's model at the time. And this would also be the first time Red would reveal his obsession with having Silver and Cinder collab and interact, showcasing how well they fit together due to their designs and revealing how Cinder always feels like she's in Silver's shadow. These DMs would last.
It's because you are. It's because you suck.
For a long time. And even then, Red would say something interesting here. There's more drama that happened over the past couple of years, but
imagine imagine where she could have been and how this could have ended had you guys just not been so obsessed with Silvervale that you just focused on yourselves, focused on your friends, and just kept going on as usual. Imagine how that would have been.
It's all from Silver's side. At some point, he'd realize just how long this conversation has been going for and would tell Nano, "Oh wait, it's late for you, you should sleep." To which Nano would reply, "Don't worry, I love gossips." Red would comment on this in the document and say, "Nano's always been open to talking about drama and gossip with me." I guess he felt the need to highlight that he wasn't forcing her to listen to any of this.
Yeah.
He'd go on to talk about the first interaction Cinder had with Silvervale, which was a complete misunderstanding, in which she posted art of her character with Silver's and mistakenly put the hashtag Cindervale, which was seen as a shipping hashtag, right? Don't worry, we'll go through this entire backstory in Silvervale's section. In any case, Red proceeds to share his speculations and theories about Silver, going as far as monitoring the viewer list during Cinder's debut and seeing that Silver was in chat for around an hour while not saying anything.
Oh my god, you're so unwell. Ugh. This is so disgusting, bro. I don't I don't want to go through the rest of this. Jesus Christ.
He also adds that a few weeks after Cinder's debut, Silver would go to Nano for a model, after her art had significantly improved. But it was almost as if he was taking credit for that, and this is something you'll see more than once in this document. Overall, a lot of these topics will make a comeback in Silvervale's section, but that's way later in the document. Nano's section is the first section about someone else involved in the drama that Cinder wants you to read. And
this just shows me how unhinged Red is and how he shouldn't be managing anybody. Again, I think I said this in the first video. Sure, he can be... You said that he helped with, like, you know, helping you grow as a smaller creator. That's totally fine. Don't let him be any part of management. Just let him give you ideas and sit in the chair while you just do everything and get a real manager. Because this is... You are so incapable of, like, being well... I legitimately don't have any words for it. You're just... I don't... I don't even know, dude. I'm just so bewildered. I am so befuddled. I am so beside myself. I'm trying to think of different ways to say it, and I'm running out of ways to say it, but it's crazy.
This is doing nothing but showcase to us how obsessed Red was with Silver, typing about her for hours. In any case, we'd go back to the topic.
Hours, bro. Hours. You know, I don't want to make speculations. I've never been one to make speculations about people's relationships. However, this is like... Red, did you get rejected by Silver? I know you and Cinder been together for a long time, but this obsession makes me think you couldn't get your get back, and the person you were trying to get your get back with was Cinder. Hey, she's beautiful. I met her. I've met Cinder IRL. Not Cinder. I've met Silvervale IRL. She's beautiful, but you're getting a little weird, are you not? I'm surprised Cinder's not more jealous as to how obsessed you are with Silver. Hours, brother. Hours talking about another woman. Anyways.
Of the Gamer Subs Cup, and he'd say that Silver is probably racing to release her Gamer Subs before Cinder, and would add a small remark saying that he wouldn't mind if Gamer Subs had their booth at Anime Expo with both Cinder and Silver on the art together, purely because it'll just make Silver mad, while adding a laughing emoji. He'd then speculate that Silver stalks Cinder's page, which is why she asked Nano for a model, going as far as saying that Silver has too much of an ego and will never give Cinder validation because she believes that Cinder is a copy. Now look, so far this is gossip, but you have to understand, Nano and Red have been talking for a while now. They both consider each other friends, and Red of course is talking about this as if it's fact, when it's just speculation. None of this has been confirmed so far. But
mind you, these are all his headcanons. None of this could have ever been true, and she could have never known any of this was going on, and yet these are your headcanons. You're unwell.
To Red's credit, at the end of this conversation, he would say, now listen, I don't want you to think we're telling you not to work with her. She's a big customer. And of course, he's referring to Silvervale. He would then reiterate. So like, we're not saying to stop working with Silver, but like, we'll always have plenty of work for you if you're willing to take it. Red would specify in the document, I'm using we're here, but Cinder had no idea this conversation was happening until I told her about it later. I was speaking for both of us without her knowledge or consent. This is something he would do more than once in these 1,000 pages. There's a comment here that Red would make that I find interesting, saying that Cinder is Silver's Dinkelberg. It's obviously meant to be a joke, but it's also a reference to the cartoon Fairly Odd Parents. In other words, according to Red, Silver saw Cinder as a nemesis out of complete jealousy, while Cinder had no clue about it and was completely innocent. This was the logic behind Red's thinking. This is how he perceived Silver. Nana would then clarify that she was the one to ask Silver about making her a model. So this whole theory about Silver wanting to copy Cinder, okay, going to Nano just because Cinder's model was successful, she just immediately killed it. She does say though that she was now regretting it because she wasn't sure if she was up for more model work. Also adding that all this talk makes me feel sus. So look, I don't know if you'd call it manipulation. I think maybe manipulation might be a bit too far, but this multi-hour gossiping tirade of Red definitely was starting to influence Nano's opinion of Silvervale, even though none of it was rooted in fact, it was all speculation. Red would make a comment about this in the document, highlighting that Nano didn't want more model work, without highlighting how much she now found Silver to be sus. It sounds kind of similar to what happened with Bao, when Red would sit there and vent that Bao was stealing editors, was stealing things from them. All this negative gossip seems to have an immediate effect on Nano, and this is something that Red fails to acknowledge or mention throughout this document.
Of course he wouldn't. Why would he? You think he's gonna acknowledge something that makes him look that bad? Why would he ever? In his mind, he's doing fine. Hell, he probably still thinks he's doing fine. I'm not surprised, honestly.
After this, Red jokingly welcomes Nano to the inner circle. This was because most people had no idea about this drama. Nano was one of the few people that was told about this by Red. This conversation would really go on for a very long time. But the next notable thing that would happen would be Nano saying, like my VTubing arc, I'm moved by spite and I enjoy it. She's referencing the fact that when she gets angry, she wants to destroy, right? Red would reply to this and say, be careful with spite. I hear she copies things, lol. So Nano wasn't even talking about Spite, the VTuber, but Red saw this as an opportunity to gossip even further. He had effortlessly moved on from Silver to another VTuber that he was going to negatively gossip about. He talked about how Spite had come into Cinder's chat, cheered 1500 bits, and was friendly, about how she then proceeded to unfollow Cinder on Twitter and stopped calling
Red gets pegged. Definitely. But how much of a bitch he acts like, and how like, bro, are you, bro, this is some shit a female does. And you're just doing all this gossiping. Bro, you get pegged. 100% you get pegged.
herself a hellhound in order to rename herself to a Cerberus instead. Red would specifically describe this happening because Cinder, quote unquote, blew past her, aka became more successful. So
yeah, that seems to bother you a lot, doesn't it?
Copy Cinder nonstop, and it would get so bad that she'd make a tweet about how she's not copying anyone with her design. The DMs would go on for another maybe 10, 20 minutes, and it would still be Red talking about Spite in a negative manner, sometimes making fun of the way she talks, like, Cinder is copying me. And we can already see in this conversation how this is starting to affect Nano's opinion of Spite, even though she probably never spoke to her or knew much about her. After this conversation, Red would tell Cinder about it. This prompted Cinder to message Nano.
I still want to believe that Nano is her own person. So despite her having her influence changed... Wait, let me hear this part. Red told me the gist of this conversation with Nano next morning. I messaged her about it.
Know about it the next morning. She'd tell her that only 3 other people know about her situation with Silver, and that it's been eating her alive ever since she released her design. She also would specify that she didn't tell Nano about the cup design being similar because she didn't want to make her feel bad, so more miscommunication, and this really feels similar to what happened with Numi, even though this was almost 2 years earlier. Cinder would then include DMs of her showing off what her figure is going to look like to Nano. She was going to have a physical figure made to be sold to her fans. Nano would say, try having Good Smile to make a demon, and Cinder would say, but Good Smile didn't even want Silver, to which Nanolist would get annoyed at and say, stop talking about Silver. Cinder felt the need to include this in the document and specify that the reason why she said this was because Good Smile was very hard to work with. When she said they didn't even want Silver, this is something she heard from another friend and was in reference to how Silver was a much larger creator. So if Good Smile didn't want to work with her, they sure as hell weren't going to work with Cinder. So 5 days later, after refusing to communicate about this and...
Fuck, I forgot the point that I was making. Oh my god, I don't remember. Let's just keep going.
Letting it fester until the last second, Cinder would ask Nano to officially change one side of the cup art with Gamer Subs because it was way too similar to Silver's, to the point where even Gamer Subs didn't want any issues, especially since they'd be releasing them fairly close together. So far, this subsection showed us that Nano was part of Red and Cinder's obsession with Silver and Spite since 2023, and it definitely allowed us to take more of a peek as to the logic and feelings that were dictating Red and Cinder in their actions. The next 8 pages in the document would be dedicated to yet again show how friendly Cinder and Red were to Nano, how Nano would sometimes ask for money, and they'd simply give that to her, then subtract it from future commissions, how they'd always prioritize her for work above all other artists, and how Cinder would always include Nano's logo or a reference to her in every stream background of hers. You can see Nano's logo here, the eye symbol, and it would be present in all of Cinder's backgrounds. This again is done in an effort to show that she wasn't just a business partner, she was a close friend to both of them. By July
I don't know about you, but I would not want to be Cinder's close friend, bro. I'm gonna be I'm gonna keep a thou wow with you. I'm gonna keep it right here with you, brother. Yeah, it definitely would not be beneficial to be Cinder's friend from what I'm getting at, from what I'm seeing so far.
2023, Cinder had grown quite a bit, and this gave Nano a lot more attention since she was the one who designed her model. She'd start receiving more commission requests, and eventually, Silver would want one. If you remember a few months ago, Nano would have been the one who messaged Silver. Nothing concrete came out of it, but now it seemed like it was going to happen. Nano would tell this to Red and would even say, "I know it's Cinder's enemy, but she's still my client, I'm sorry." To which Red would say it's okay. Red would then specify in the document that he hadn't forced Nano to call...
Wait, after I asked Nano told me Silver already asked her for a model after Cinder's Demon debut, which was 3 days before this. But this yesterday, wait, did you tell her no? About the model, Nano had the ability to tell me no. Silver was still her client regardless, and we feel about it, I accepted. That's just business. Her calling Silver Cinder's enemy at the time were her words, not mine, and how we viewed Silvervale at this time. It's just someone treating her unfairly. And not how we viewed Silvervale at the time, just someone treating her unfairly. Yeah, of course she's going to call her enemy. You've done nothing but treat her as an enemy. Hello? Yeah. Obviously, I would have said that joke too. Or I would have called her your obsession because, you know what I'm saying?
Silver, Cinder's enemy, and that he and Cinder didn't even view her like this at the time. At the end of the day, though, it's up to you to decide whether that's a fair thing to say, especially after the hours of gossip.
No, it's not fair. No, definitely not. No, she was your enemy, and that was a one-sided enemy thing. Born of your own delusions and, like, I don't even know what else. That's you. That's on you. That's your... Man, that's your fault.
Had laid upon Nano. But during this conversation, Redwood, like almost a broken record, mentioned the same things about Silver and would even post this same image with
what
Silver
a surprise!
And Cinder side by side. This truly seemed to be one of his...
That's his... I bet you this is his... He has this like saved and bookmarked on his phone so he can send it whenever.
His biggest passions, right? Uniting Cinder and Silver together, even though Silver was pretty distant from Cinder, and we'd see that in her part of the document. Later in the conversation, Red would congratulate Nano on her newfound success with all these new client inquiries, but then would say, "I think Cinder and Silver will always be fighting for your work behind the scenes," already showing us that he was worrying, if not already panicking. According to Red, this was the first instance of him implying that he'd be competing directly with anyone. He would then say, "We have some problems going on."
Wait, let me see this. Let me read this one more time. Me saying I think Silver and Cinder will always be fighting for you behind the scenes is the first instance of me implying we should eventually be competing directly with anyone. Mind you, this is you doing this. And I want to reiterate again that it's crazy that you are the one that is like starting this all. Again, just for funsies. I might as well just reiterate it because he likes to reiterate things too. She took him back.
We need to fix, and just some drama getting to us, but yeah, it's nonstop crazy things. This was in reference to a message he had typed earlier saying just a lot we have to take care of before that debut.
Just
this
business.
is when Nanolist would again state, "May I know what's up?" Kind of like the gossip. Again, Red would take this opportunity to say, Nano's always been open to talking about drama and gossip with me. During this gossiping session, Red would say that Silver's cup releasing so soon after Cinder's has been getting to them. And it was at this point that Nano actually realized, you know what? Maybe she doesn't like gossip that much anymore. She simply didn't want to hear about Silver again, jokingly saying, "I'll slap you about Silver stuff, forget about her, I swear." Red would comment about this in the document saying Nano got tired of hearing about drama around Silvervale specifically.
Can we cut his mic? Can we cut Red's mic? I don't want to hear any more of his comments. I'm like over him. Can we cut it? Can we cut his mic? Is anyone back there? Oh, no one could cut his mic. Oh, this is all right, fine.
Specifically, Red would see that she was getting tired of this and would try to explain his logic, saying that if Silver did recognize Cinder as an equal or a friend, then it would be like she's endorsing her cop.
I don't know how she took hours of this. It's been 10 minutes and I'm over it.
This would be detrimental to her, especially since they share a lot of the same audience too. In his mind, they have to fight for that audience's wallets with their cups and figures. But then specifying, it's not even about the money. Red just wanted to see them get along, but of course,
it's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
Of course, the marketing potential and money they could make if they teamed up would be crazy, and this is something that Red was really passionate about as well. Overall,
money?
this whole
Yeah, I would
situation
be
is
too.
a shame. Getting a cup with gamer subs, especially back then, right, in the early days, was a very big deal. But it seemed like Red and Cinder could never celebrate anything. They would always look at their accomplishments.
Bro, you guys are just so weirdly obsessed over people who don't even know you. I mean, I'm sure they know she existed, but like, bro, you are like a fly on the wall cursing the world because of some problems that you aligned in your own head while Silver doesn't even acknowledge you. I don't understand. Like, you're so unhinged, it's kind of scary.
In comparison to others, especially Silvervale. And in the end,
And the worst part is Cinder gave him a platform to give his opinions, which, to be honest, is like so much worse because look how it makes him look terrible. I said we are fighting for Cinder and Silver's shared audience. Wallets are cups and figures because Silver is his first wife and cups dropped it, blah, 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 blah. Why? Why? I mean, obviously, no. To be honest, this part he's not wrong. This part he's not wrong just because they are competing, but that's not because of something where he's completely right in his own delusions. It's more so just because that's just the nature of Twitch, right? Like, people only have so much money, but yeah, no, I don't know what you are.
Say comparison is the thief of joy, and this particular thief must have really enjoyed hanging around Cinder and Red. After this, the next 9 pages would show DMs between Red and Nano, then DMs between Cinder and Nano, in which they prioritize working with her over any other artist, change their plans to accommodate her, and choose to wait for her whenever she says that she can't work on things at the moment. They'd also show a couple pages that were directly copy and pasted from Bao's document. In any case, by November 2023, even though Nano was getting way more popular due to all the demands for commissions, Red and Cinder would remain very loyal to her. They would always come to her for their models, never hiring someone else. Them saying this might have been to soften the blow for the very controversial thing that Red would end up saying next. Because when this was revealed in Nano's document in April 2025, the art community and the general VTuber community was absolutely baffled at how someone could say this to an artist. It would be him saying, not to discredit any of your work, because everything you work on is the top of the line incredible, but when everyone's a Nano baby, it feels less special to be one, if that makes sense. He'd reiterate this point again as a comment on this document, saying this was about supply and demand and the perceived value of Nano's models if they weren't as scarce. Like I said above, this was not to discredit the quality of her work or her talent as an artist. I would recommend you say this to any artist you might know. You'll probably get punched in the balls. An artist lives to create, right? They want to do as many beautiful things as possible to impact as many lives they can. To attribute this action as a cheap supply and demand business tactic is genuinely, in every way, an insult to their work and their entire reason of being. But Red couldn't see that. He was too...
I think if you're thinking about it in terms of like a business, I know people might not agree with this if they get to this far into the video. I do see where he's coming from because it's like if you like there's a reason why there's only would you rather be, I'm trying to think of a really good actor who isn't in a lot of things. I don't really know. But it's like, would you rather be The Rock, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson of artists, or like a Joe Pesci or like a Robert De Niro, someone with like an insane amount of range? I can see it. So, but the thing is that like the way that like you gotta think, I can say that this is the one time where it's like, yeah, you're thinking about it as a business. I can get that, sure. I can get behind that if I'm thinking about it as like in the sense of a business. Should you ask your artist to do this? Probably not. But again, since he is the business side, he's not like an artsy guy. I can see it, right? He's just thinking about it as a business man. And in that case, sure. Yeah, I can kind of get that. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Busy thinking about business. This was Red essentially trying to gatekeep Nano from others, all for the sake of making Cinder appear more special. Some people call it manipulative.
She would. say it however you want. She would absolutely appear more special because she has this one artist and she is the only artist, or she's the only person to get art from this one person. You could say it whatever you want, but in the end, that is very true.
But that's up to you to decide. Regardless, Red would reiterate that both him and Cinder loved Nano. It just sucks that right now everyone wants a Nano model. I mean, it's good because you make a lot of money and you gotta eat, lol, but sucks that it's not as special. He would again make that same point. Nano would express, I'm actually hard grinding because next year...
I think this part is not good. This is not okay. I think this part definitely does get kind of weird when you're like constantly pestering her and like making sly comments like this where you're like, oh man, too bad we're no longer special, you know, anybody can get a model from you and then it's whatever, blah blah blah. Sure, like if you ask her once, like when they ask for the exclusivity and she says no and they just leave it at that, had that been the way that this had gone, I would not be I wouldn't judge him and I wouldn't say that it's bad. However, the way that he's like constantly saying this, I think that is really bad.
Might get my own house, to which Red says housewarming party when. Now at this point, both Red and Cinder wanted to make her 3.0 model to be ready by 2025, right? This was the end of 2023. Nano would say, look, since I'm booked till June 2024 so far, let me know whenever is possible to confirm this new model, so I'll stop the models a bit for real and focus on yours. Red would say, I'll have to talk to Cinder and talk to blank again, and then Nano would say, like I said, would be an honor to keep being Cinder's mama, but if she wants to go for blank, it is what it is. Won't take it personal or anything. The reason why these DMs are there is so that Red can say, her saying it is what it is almost sounds like it's just business. This is in reference to something.
Wait, Nano said Nano said it'd be an honor to keep.
We'll see later that made Cinder look bad. Red would then say something along the lines of, we take pride in calling you her artist. But he'd specify that he didn't say this because this was about him and Cinder owning Nano or keeping her from working with anyone else. It was simply because Nano's style had become synonymous with Cinder's brand. Red would then start to vent about all the new and exciting things he's working on, which also led to how unhealthy his and Cinder's work-life balance had become. And Nano would say, dude, you make me rethink my entire current wait list. Red would say, huh? Why? You gotta buy a house. You and your husband need a house. To which Nano would say, I don't know, Cinder's just the best baby I got, to be honest. Red would say, just by talking about our plans to Nano, she said I was making her rethink her current waitlist, calling Cinder the best baby I got, to be honest. The next page is something we already saw in Bao's document, in which Red would say, but I mean, if you want to clear up your schedule for more work with us, I'm not going to stop you. Which Nano would say, yeah, I'm thinking on cleaning the most later commissions. This is when Nano eventually would say that she really wanted to work with Bao. She didn't really want to cancel. Shortly afterwards, Nano would tell Red that she's canceling both Silverveil's and Cottontail's models, and that she'd have her manager, which is her husband, Mio, do it himself so that he gets the fault.
Okay.
Those are her own words. She didn't want to deal with the consequences herself. Red in the document takes the opportunity to say that this wasn't his fault, and that he only supported her decision after she...
Oh yeah? I'm sure nothing is... No, nothing's ever been your fault. No, not at all.
Made it, never manipulating her pride. So again, this is up to you to decide whether it's true or not. A couple days later, this is exactly what would happen. Nano would message Silver, we already saw this in Silverveil's document, and would tell her that she has to cancel the model commission because her manager, aka her husband, was asking her to cancel the most commissions possible for help.
Wait, did we? What did you just say?
Happen. Nano would message Silver, we already saw this in Silverveil's document, and would tell her that she has to cancel the model commission because her manager...
Oh, I think he recorded this in a different order. Because Cinder's way over here.
aka her husband, was asking her to cancel the most commissions possible for health reasons.
Right.
Cinder would then take the time to show the message she had sent Silverveil, congratulating her on her Gamers Up stuff and how she received it and how they look amazing. This was 2 days before Red's conversation with Nano, right, talking about canceling Silverveil's model. Silver would show this message in her document and would be disgusted over how Cinder was saying these nice things, while from her point of view, Red was in DMs with Nano, canceling Silverveil's model. Cinder would argue that this message was genuine, and that she had no idea what was going on in Nano's DMs. After canceling, Nano would express in her Discord server how she's feeling healthier and less stressed. This was a day after she had decided to cancel both Silver's and Cotton's models. To Cinder, this is all very two-faced, because when Silverveil would post her document about Cinder,
Wait, what? Say again?
and less stressed. This was a day after she had decided to cancel both Silver's and Cotton's models. To Cinder, this is all very two-faced, because when Silverveil would post her document about Cinder, Nano was already very well aware why Silver's model was canceled. She still, however, replied to Silverveil's tweet and would say, I literally can't believe this. linking a screenshot of the section we just referenced very shortly beforehand, where
Right.
Cinder sent a very nice message to Silver, while at the same time, 2 days earlier, both Red and Nano were talking about canceling Silver's model. Again, to Cinder, this was very two-faced. Nano knew exactly why Silver's model was canceled, and yet here she was acting surprised over the fact that it happened. The next thing we see is Nano proceeding to ask Red about when she should finish Bao's model. Now we saw this in Bao's section, but what we didn't see was Nano calling herself a dedicated Cinder slave. This is something that Red would point out in the document, and he would say this isn't ever something he ever implied her to be, or that he only wanted her to work
It is pretty funny, though, you gotta admit.
with them. However, such interactions could mean a lot of things. And while unprofessionalism might come to mind first, since Nano was asking a friend about when she should finish a commission for a client, one could also see this as a way for Nano to stay in Red's good graces, to maybe prove her loyalty to someone who showered her with trust, while also happening to see enemies everywhere. On the 20th of November 2023, Cinder tries to show us that she wasn't trying to monopolize Nano by showing us a conversation with someone she had worked with. That person was wondering what it was like to work with Nano, and Cinder would do nothing but sing her praises. And speaking of praises, the next image shows Red messaging 2 tweets to Nano, one featuring Cinder and the other one featuring BuffBub, another VTuber who had her model made by Nano. In these 2 tweets, they were both praising Nano as their favorite artist. Red would say, "Your daughters are really related, lol," and all of this would be Cinder trying to show us that Red, as well as her, never had any problem sharing Nano with others. A couple days later, on the 25th of November 2023, we'd see that Nano misunderstood a
Yeah, but it's like, sure, some of her, he didn't mind with some of her friends. What happened if Silvervale had tweeted this? Huh? Hey, wait, Red. If Cinder had tweeted this, how would you feel, huh? How would you had reacted? What about Bao? Or Spite? Huh? How do you think you would have reacted there, bud? It's a curious question, isn't it? It's just a question.
with others. A couple days later, on the 25th of November 2023,
I've been awake for too long, can you tell?
we'd see that Nano misunderstood a conversation between her and Red. This was in reference to when Red would say, hey, if you make more models, then it's less special. She would come to the conclusion that she wasn't okay with it after speaking to some friends, and would realize that she was still pretty confused about the sentence in which Red said that more models mean that they're less special. She understood this as Red saying that she should stop making more models and just purely focus on Cinder. At this point,
maybe it's because I'm not an artist. I think that's fine to say ? Depending on how you say it, maybe. Again, I'm not an artist, so I can't tell you. Don't take my word for it is what I'm trying to say, but like I guess because we don't really know, right? The whole feeling of being an artist. I can kind of see this being an okay comment to make. Like, you don't really mean anything by it, right? You're not like, he's just like, oh, haha. Maybe it does put pressure on her. I don't know. I'm trying to, again, despite everything I'm saying, I'm trying to be fair. You guys make it really, really hard to be fair to you. I honestly, had I not been trying to be fair and listen to the whole thing, I'd have cut this off in probably like the first video, because you guys are just the dumbest people on the planet. But I'm trying, brother. I'm trying. Anyway.
I feel like it's important to mention that Nano is Brazilian. Her first language is not English. So maybe the misunderstanding stemmed from that. I don't know. Still something important to know. Based on Red's reaction in the DMs and based on the comments he made in the document, he was visibly caught off guard. He was under the impression that Nano wanted to work on more Cinder stuff. That's the impression he got from her messages. And he reiterated what he meant about her making more models for other people in regards to how it would be less special. He'd say that's with anything though, not just your work. If you have something special and then everyone wants and gets that thing, it makes it less special. I'm sorry you were under the impression we were trying to make you only do work for us. Nano would then say, but every single model I do is unique and I make them special in their way. It's not like I'm selling Cinder to everyone. Please don't feel this way. She then even apologized, saying, I'm sorry I made you both feel this way too. But still, even after this entire interaction,
I think the way, when she puts it that way, I do get it now. I see why it's kind of weird to say that. I didn't really get it at first, but like when she says it like that, I get it. I think I get it now. Yeah, it makes sense.
Would still, triple down now, he'd say, to me it was a matter of supply and demand, just like a rare trading card. The more models Nano made, and the more often she would, the less valuable they'd become for the people who have them. Nano's models are all incredible quality, extremely unique, and highly sought after, but they'd each individually be less special or valuable if there were 100 of them rather than only 10. So essentially he was...
But you're not getting 100 of them. You're getting one. It's like if she made 5 Cinder copies, like the exact same model 5 times and sold that off 5 different times, yeah, after the first one, it'll lose its value because it's like there's 1 out there, now there's 2 out there, now there's 3 out there, now there's 4, now there's 5 out there. Because she's an artist worth her own salt, right? And she's like one of the best artists for VTubers. When she makes one and then makes another one, it doesn't like... That's not her making 1 and then 2. That's her making 1 and then another one. Does that make sense? Like, it's not going to be like 1, 2. They're not going to be stacking on top of each other. It's like 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and it just goes on and on and on until like Cinder Cinder, if he made 1 Cinder model and then another Cinder model, then that's 2. 1 Silver Veil and 1 Bow model, that's still 1 and 1. I think I paused that, my bad.
Or valuable if there were 100 of them rather than only 10. So essentially he was treating this like Pokemon, when in reality this was someone's living, someone's passion, and someone's objective to make as many awesome models as possible. He'd then say, I only thought this way over models because of the role and importance they play for a VTuber, and the importance Nano's art was to our brand.
I think he just didn't I think the problem is that he didn't understand her. He must have not understood her explanation, which really sucks because it's like her explanation, like I didn't get it at first. And once I heard her explanation, it just like, it made sense. It clicked. It didn't click before, but when she had said it after, now I'm seeing what you're saying, right? Now I'm getting it. Now it's I'm starting to feel it.
It was never about who was asking Nano.
I'm
for
feeling
a model,
it now,
just that
Mr.
more
Krabs.
More people were. More new model clients meant more recurring model clients, meaning less time for anything we wanted to do with Nano, which is why we considered an exclusivity deal in January 2025. My priority has always been our plans and our schedule. Everything a VTuber does revolves around new model debuts. Merch, music, events, and more are all planned around a new model or outfit as a centerpiece. That's why I always asked Nano about her schedule and where she could fit in our plans at the consistent pace we've always... the sentence just ends here. There's literally just a period. Where she could fit in our plans at the consistent pace we've always. Okay, that really caught me off guard. Anyway, he continues, that way we could keep up with the pressure to always do bigger and better things all around new models. On the other hand, as you'll read, I could also completely sympathize with Nano's perspective as an artist. In an artist's view, they want their art to be everywhere and seen by as many people as possible, and have more and more people appreciate their craft, hard work, and love they put into what they do. More artwork for more clients means more of their work will be seen by more people, leading to more new clients and more new opportunities to sustain themselves financially. New ideas and new concepts that come in keep work exciting and prevent creatively burning out from doing the same thing over and over again with the same older clients. When Nano told me how she felt, I was 100% on board with what she was saying and had no reason to argue against her, even if my priority has always been Cinder's projects. I also cared about and prioritized Nano as my friend and what she wanted to do for herself. I apologized to Nano for the confusion and accepted her decision without any pushback. When I said business is business in these messages, it was referring to the fact that Nano made a business decision that was best for her, even if it wasn't necessarily what I wanted, and I respected it. Didn't hold it against her and worked around it with her. In the next screenshot, we could see him saying that sentence. In fact, he says it twice. The first time would be in reference to Nano saying, thank you for understanding my side. We're all trying to have our names everywhere. Just please don't take this personal or anything. I still love working with you guys. And again, apologize for the trouble on your plans. The second time would be when she'd say, I want to take Silver's model, but I don't want to disrespect Cinder. I just want to do pretty models, no hurt feelings. And Red would say, business is business, with a laughing emoji. From Red's point of view, he was completely understanding and sympathetic to Nano's side of things and working with Silverveil. He would never ask her not to work with Silver or to cancel her model. But if she wanted to work with Silver, then there was nothing he could do to stop her. It was her business decision, and he respected it just like he always had. This is what business is business was referring to, according to him. He would then reassure her that everything was fine, but then at the end would say, me and you are good, but I still have to tell this to Cinder, with a laughing emoji. And then he said it'll be fine. He felt the need to specify that this was a joke. After this conversation, Red would respect Nano's wishes, but then say they'd have to cancel Cinder's 3.0 model until further notice, instead only focusing on the upcoming pirate outfit because he was assuming Nano wouldn't be able to do both now that she's going to commit to working with others. This is when Nano would say, I might be able to, considering I'll only take Silverback. It wasn't clear why she wanted to still cancel with everyone after having this lengthy conversation with Red, but at this point I think there was a big problem with both communication and expectations on both ends of this relationship. Red should have never brought up his paranoia and rivalries into his business relationship with Nano, and
no shit, he shouldn't have had that paranoia to begin with. Oh my god, a lot. Dude, so much of this just hinges on what's his name, on Red just being a normal person, and it sucks that that's what it really takes, because he's not. Since he's not, this all just comes crumbling down, and Cinder has to be the one to pick up the pieces. Like, no one is looking for Red to give an apology. No one really knows who he exists after a certain point, right? And yet, I don't know. Whatever, go ahead.
Her liking gossip doesn't really mean much, seeing that he initiated the first move.
Right.
What he did was unprofessional and does a disservice to the person he's representing, which in this case was Cinder. On the other hand, Nano was all over the place. She was doing a disservice to people who were willing to spend thousands of dollars on her models by being so indecisive, and she mistakenly, through a number of different factors, saw this as some sort of loyalty test with Cinder when it wasn't really the case. At least, that's what Red and Cinder claim. Now next up, there will be a conversation about another VTuber by the name of Giri, another one of Cinder's friends. She was first mentioned like close to 10 pages ago, but it was very out of place. It was just this page.
Or is it a different Giri?
This will be one of the many projects that were going to be canceled. It might be a different Giri because of Nano wanting less work. On the 19th of November 2023, Nano would bring up her name to Red, saying that Giri might be interested in a model. Red's reply would be, ain't no way, crying emoji. She's gonna want you for sure. To which Nano would say, hold on, it's not like this. Then they would change the subject. We're now back to the 25th of November, when Nano would say, I might be able to, considering I'll only take Silverback. Red would then ask the question, did you end up working on Giri's model? To which Nano would say, oh, not yet, she was just browsing. This is when Red would say, no worries, business is business, further explaining what this means in the document. Saying,
it's just business?
Business is business here is me telling Nano that no matter what her decision on Giri's model was, I would accept whatever outcome she chose. I didn't want to affect her decision about it, and Giri never came up between us again. At this point, this sentence was his catchphrase. Anyway, they'd continue their conversation, and Red would start worrying that Nano told everyone, including Silver, that the reason why she chose to cancel their models was due to Cinder, to which she would say, I told them all it was health issues. Before ending the conversation, Red would make sure to specify, we never want to make you feel like we're making you or forcing you to work on or not work on something. Sorry that it sounded to you like I was telling you to only do Cinder work. The next day, on the 26th of November, Nano would personally message Cinder to make sure things were okay. This is when the infamous phrase, it's just business, would make an appearance after Cinder would write it in DMs, a phrase that would become a meme during her cancellation on April 2025. In the document, Cinder would take the opportunity to explain the reasoning behind this phrase and why she wrote it, saying, since it has been completely ignored in my apology, deceptively misinterpreted, and turned into a meme, let me explain again what I meant by it's just business when I use the phrase myself.
Sure,
if Nana had chosen to pause, delay, or cancel any planned or future work with me for any reason she would give me, whether due to other clients, burnout, or any other reason, then it was just business. Both Red and I had repeatedly reassured Nana over the years that there was nothing she could say or do to make us choose to stop working with her, and nothing about our work together would ever make me rethink the friendship I had with her. Our feelings did not dictate Nano's business and commission decisions. We always made accommodations for her to be able to work with us when she could, and she was always willing and excited to do things with us. If she had come to us herself saying she didn't want to work with us ever again, then that was just business. Neither of our comments were made trying to convince her to sabotage or cancel any projects for anyone else using business to justify it. It's just business was used in this conversation about the situation alone, to tell Nana we accepted what she wanted to do. I don't remember using the phrase anywhere else again, but it has been turned into this catchphrase I've allegedly had all along to sabotage people. If you were to present my conversation with Nano first, without any of the context of Red's discussion with her happening just before this, it could look like I was directly responding to Nano's message about canceling other people's models as just business. This is how it was presented in Nano's document. You'd also have to ignore everything else I said in the same message to Nano and everything else from this same conversation that referenced what Red had told Nano the day before. When you have the full context of the situation and the order it happened in, my "it's just business" comment means something completely different than what it was deceptively portrayed as to the public. So here's the thing. I think
she's right. However, you have to admit, it's a really funny meme. I love saying that, hey, It's just business. And honestly, it could be it's just such a banger meme. It's just an unfortunate situation to you that it is an insanely banger meme that now everybody's gonna use it to justify anything or just to say it as a meme. I'm sorry, it's the internet. This happens. I will probably get quoted out of context in some way or another, and that's gonna become a meme. Hey, but you know what that is? It's just business.
Might have failed to realize why the "it's just business" meme caught on when she tried to clear it up in the document.
Yeah.
It's not because of the phrase itself, but more so what followed afterwards in her DMs with Nano. These DMs would start off with Nano saying, "Hey, I wanted to just talk to you about your thoughts regarding what Red had said." This message would say, not to discredit any of your work, but making more models makes them feel less special, etc., etc. Nano said, "I thought on canceling some models because of it, but then I realized it's not really fair to me." Cinder would say, "I understand what he means, but at the end of the day, it's just business." The next paragraph would be her saying, "Being one of your very first model babies was so amazing. I was happy to be able to find someone to help you with live 2D cutting to improve your skills. And I think that's a big part of why everyone loved the 1.0 model and then started asking you for them." This, to many, came off as painfully manipulative. The fact that during a conversation about others working with Nano,
even now, I do feel like she, in a way, slowly, like it was slow and steady. I do think that Red probably, I don't want to say manipulated, but his influence definitely hit her at some point. And he could try to deny it all he wants, but you did take hours upon hours just shit-talking people. It's like you're not being honest with yourself or with anyone else if you're saying that, oh, this couldn't have influenced her in any kind of way at all. You're being dishonest at that point. And that's okay to be dishonest with to other people, but don't be dishonest to me because I'm not the one that, I didn't do anything to you. There's no reason to lie to me. But I'm just saying that as I see it, it's been slow but surely. Slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady gets Nanolist on your side. And slow and steady makes this also fall apart because eventually she was just done with it. So all that gossip needed to stop. But it is slow and steady.
Cinder would take the time to make it a point that if it wasn't for her commissioning Nano and taking the time to find her someone to teach her character rigging, then Nano wouldn't even be in this position with multiple clients to begin with.
I think that is being one of your just being able to find skills. I think is a big part of maybe. It's hard to know if she's doing this on purpose or if she's just that unknowing of how this comes off, which, oh man, with the Numi part, it makes me want to believe that she's just that. She didn't know how this came off. She's not a very good communicator, so I want to believe that. And I kind of want to give her that pass, that she didn't know how this came off. I almost want to give it to her because of how incompetent she is with communication.
With rubbed many people the wrong way. It almost sounded like Cinder was taking
that I can't save you from. Everybody else seeing that as a bad thing, hey, you're on your own. I'm not here to save that. That's all gone and that's all here and gone. There's nothing I could do about it. I don't have that kind of power to stop people from thinking that it's what it is.
Credit for Nano making it here. Now, look, even though she didn't further explain anything about this sentence in this new document, she did explain it in her initial apology, saying it was to reminisce over their shared past.
Yeah,
Thing is,
sure.
Though, one can definitely reminisce with someone about their shared past without having to bring up an important favor they did for them as the centerpiece of the conversation. This is why these messages became a focal point during the drama during April 2025. The next 2 pages would then be more DMs between Red and Nano in which they treat her very well, moving projects around to accommodate her, etc., etc.
Sure.
But then Cinder would make it a point to include some DMs between her personally and Nano showing how well she treated her as well. Like, for example, congratulating her about working...
Dude, you're not going to get you're not going to get us to hand wave everything else that happened because you have some good interactions with her. right? This whole thing is a gradual thing. I don't need to know every single message you have ever sent to each other across the course of your lifetime to make it make or break, right? You just have to you don't have to mess up every single day. You just have to mess up once to some people, and that'll be enough.
On so many different cool projects with different people. The next 5 pages would again be DMs between Red and Nano, in which she was accommodating her, being fully understanding of her situation, etc., etc. And then the next image would show DMs between Nano and Cinder, in which Cinder helped her out with some audio questions. This was an effort by Cinder to show that she did have normal conversations with Nano and that she was very nice to her.
Cinder, can I ask you something about my contact? Okay.
Outside of this situation. The next event in the timeline would be on the 25th.
Sorry, I like audio stuff, so I wanted to know what they were talking about.
June 2024. This is when Nano would tell Red that she was getting less commissions than usual, and that this worked for her because she wanted to take more time to try and stream more often anyway. She would, however, indicate that she was interested in taking on more Cinder work. This, of course, made Red visibly overjoyed. A week later, Nano and Cinder would collab while streaming together. Cinder and Red would stop by Nano's meet and greet and anime expo. 17 days after that, someone would message Cinder about her experience working with Nano, and she'd say that she's fantastic to work with. All these different situations are in this document purely to support Cinder and Red's claim that they were nothing but nice and supportive to Nano. And to their credit, when it comes to those situations, yes, Nano seems to have been treated pretty well. The next 8 pages would then be a complete repetition of what we saw in Bao's document, so there's no need to cover them. The next event that would occur would be at the end of July 2024.
Okay.
Nano would get into a public drama with a well-known VTuber rigger who was meant to rig a model she made for Iron Mouse. On her model, she had a pearl necklace. The problem, though, was that it was clearly badly rigged, lazily put together with the beads moving as if they were independently levitating, right? As if there was no string.
Wasn't this with Kevin? Or am I making that up?
Attached to them. Nano would see someone's tweet highlighting the necklace's disappointing rigging, and then she'd make a quote tweet about it, publicly calling out the rigger, saying, "I fucking hate this, because this should be the original chest and he modified it without my knowledge," he being the rigger. And I clearly state that I offer free fixing for the rigger until model is done and good. She then continued the thread saying, "There was no communication between me and blank, the rigger, but surely this is not minor visual difference."
I gotta look this up. I swear it's because of... Okay, yeah, I figured as much because I remember... Kevin is like a super, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial figure as a rigger because of some of the models he be doing. So I remember that. I think I follow him. So people be coming after him for anything. Well, I shouldn't say for anything, but yeah, for stuff.
The Cinder, this was Nano admitting that she had never communicated with a person she publicly called out. Of course, drawing a parallel between this and Nano publicly making the document about her in April 2025 without messaging her first. Nano would reply to herself again saying, "Yeah, I learned to stand up and tell clients that I won't work with them if it's rigger X. It's kind of douchey, but feel like it's needed." To Cinder, this is proof that Nano could stand up to herself if she found something to be weird, further proving that she wasn't manipulated to cancel anything by Red. As this was happening, both Nano and Red would speak about it in DMs. In it, we can see Nano trying to put on a brave face while stressing out and not really knowing if she did the right thing. Red would be there to reassure her, telling her that she did indeed do the right thing and shouldn't worry. At some point, Nano would say that she'll probably apologize because she doesn't want to stain her name while potentially staining Cinder's name as a result. Red would tell her it won't. Trust me.
Yeah.
In other words, what he was saying was, don't worry, and no need to apologize. Red would make a comment in this document saying, "Some of my messages here aged really well." This is, of course, ironic. The document would then show a now deleted tweet of the rigger in response to the public callout, saying, "I fucking hate this." Nanolist removed herself from tag and direct conversation and uses emotional language to attack and rally rather than actually caring about fixing the art that I've provided instructions for 7 months. But the focus seems to have shifted away from, and that's it. That's where the tweet ends. Overall, the subsection was aimed to highlight that in Red and Cinder's opinion, what Nano did to that rigger was wrong, and that they could draw direct parallels between this and what she did to them in April 2025. I should mention, though, that after the public callout, the rigger fixed this issue fairly quickly. Very quickly, in fact. However, it's not really known whether...
Yeah, because I think Kevin is actually a really good model rigger, if I'm not mistaken. Like, everybody gets models from Kevin. Kevin.
This rigger and Nano are on good terms today, or if they're still hostile to each other. The next 12 pages in the
I
document
don't actually
will be
know.
a complete repetition to what we already saw in Bao's document, so we're going to be skipping those. After these repetitions, the next 8 pages would be more DMs trying to showcase how well Nano was treated by Red and Cinder, even including details about how Cinder and Nano had collabed on her birthday, for example, and how much fun they had, recounting it.
That doesn't mean anything though, bro. Come on. I don't even know if I could talk about that. I probably shouldn't talk about that. But you know, marriages also start off well. But just because a lot of days happen that are well doesn't mean that, you know, that one fateful day doesn't really mean that it needs to stop. That's all I'm saying.
In DMs. There's going to be more pages like this in this document. So from now on, I'll be skipping them since I'm assuming that you got the point.
Yeah.
This leads up to the next topic. On the 29th of September 2024, 2 months after canceling Bao's model, the word exclusivity would be brought up for the first time. But unlike how it was portrayed during April 2025, according to this document, it was Nano that has brought this up first, not Red. Cinder would say, about 2 months after canceling Bao's model, Nano asked Red about us paying for her to cancel her projects. She brought up the possibility of some kind of exclusivity deal to Red for the first time, saying she just wants to do Cinder stuff. This is what I said about Nano accepting projects in my initial apology. Every time I had been told that Nano had agreed to work on a new commission with me, it had been willingly and with excitement. From my point of view, it was that she genuinely wanted to be working on these things. I wanted to work with Nano as much as I possibly could, making her art the face of my brand. Cinder would then say, this was followed by her canceling a long list of model projects herself for a bunch of different VTubers after filling up her waitlist with more projects than she could reasonably take on again. Cinder would then reference her initial apology again with the sentence, of her own volition, Nano canceled a large portion of her model commissions last September. Cinder would then claim that this entire conversation was left out of Nano's document, and all of the blame for these model cancellations was put on me and Red. If you're one of the 6 VTubers who had a project with Nano canceled around this time, this was what happened. Once again, I had no involvement in this conversation and was only told about what happened afterwards. So in these DMs between Nano and Red, we can see her, unprompted, say the phrase, hypothetically, if I accept to be paid to cancel every commission that's not Cinder related, would you pay it? When Red would reply with, huh? I don't understand. Nano would explain in all caps, I'm freaking out with my comms and I think I just want to do Cinder stuff, I'm dying inside. I want to do my own shit too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask such a weird question. At this point, Red would need a bit more to understand what was going on, and when he finally understood, he'd say, we'll pay you for work you do for us, and if you want more to do to replace other commissions, we can do that. He would then directly reply to the message in which Nano would mention her hypothetical scenario, trying to understand it more as he asked, by this, did you mean for us to pay to cancel other projects? Nano would reply with, yeah. Just a silly comment. This is when Red would specify that he and Cinder were willing to pay her for new projects to replace those commissions, but not just to cancel them outright without getting anything else in return. However, Red would make an exception, adding the phrase, unless it was silver, with a laughing emoji. Here's what Red had to say in the document. I was open to the idea of exclusivity, but the details needed to be figured out. If Nano chose to keep working with us, we'd always have something for her to do. I asked Nano to clarify, and yes, she suggested we pay her to cancel on 6 other VTubers. I wasn't going to pay Nano just to cancel other projects, except Silverveil, who I said as a joke. But if she chose to cancel them herself, we'd help replace the income with our own stuff.
Oh yeah? That's crazy.
DMs, Nano would say, I think I'll just freak out and cancel all my shit. Red would ask, how much do you have besides our stuff? And this is when we'd see the full list of models on the chopping block.
Giga and Mousy. Well, that's strike 2 and 3 right there, brother. I don't like that at all.
It would be Obi Katy Cat, 2 Iron Mouse models, Giga, Zentrea,
not
Fufu,
Mike
and
Gogurt.
Megaload VT. Now, if you're unaware of VTubing or VTubers in general, at the time of this conversation, Iron Mouse, Giga, and Zentrea were all part of Vishoja, one of the biggest VTuber agencies at the time. 2 of those models were for Iron Mouse, just by herself. One of, if not the biggest English VTuber on the planet. These weren't just any
she loves to have, she goes through models like outfits, brother. It's kind of insane. I absolutely believe that it was 2 models just for Mousy alone.
Missions. I think it's safe to say that any artist of any size would absolutely kill for the opportunity to work on them. Still though, out of curiosity, Red
dude,
would
these
ask,
are some huge names in VTubing too. Imagine the money, and you want to drop them? I don't know. Maybe I just don't know. I don't know the pressures of being an artist, so I guess I couldn't say that.
How much did you want us to pay to cancel everything, lol? And he would make a comment on the document, saying, Nano wanted us to pay for her to cancel these 7 commissions for other people. If we were to pay her the price of them just to cancel them, it would have cost us anything from $40,000 to $50,000. Back in the DMs,
Holy shit, brother. Bro, that is your bag. You get in there and you finish them models.
Red would say, to be honest, I think if you were just to be focusing on Cinder and your own content, plus just drawing art again for Twitter/Patreon, that would do you good. To which Nano would say, that's my dream. And
hell no, get that 50 bands, brother. What the hell?
Things. And then Red
you
would
better
ask,
make
what
that
do
money.
You want to work on? 3 minutes later, Nano would say, I'm canceling shit. I need my freedom. She would then ask, Red, should I cancel?
Bro, fuck the freedom. That's 50 bands.
Blank. Say yes or no and I'll do it. I just need a voice. I won't blame you or anything. Red would panic and say, yeah, but I'll have to live with that. Nano misunderstands completely and assumes him saying yeah meant that she should cancel and says, fuck, okay, I will. Red panics.
Especially where you from Brazil. Bro, that is an insane amount of cash.
And further saying, wait, no, that's not what I meant.
Cash money.
And Nano would say, that's my own response, not yours. You don't get to say what I do. I'm a free woman. 20 minutes later, Nano would say, okay, I'm free. I canceled so many stuff. Red, in all caps, probably.
Oh my god. Okay, no matter what just happened, no matter what happens, I just witnessed her burn $50,000 possibly. I need to take a lap. I think I need to take a lap after that. You can't be serious.
Worrying, would ask, what did you cancel? I was going to say you should at least keep blank because that's good advertising for you. The rest should go. Now giving his opinion. But Nano wouldn't budge and said, no, I'm so done for now. I've been thinking about this for a long, long time. Red would say, Nano canceled everything because she accepted too much, saying she was thinking about doing this for a long time, like she told me 2 months earlier leading up to canceling with Bao. He would then show us the images of her canceling with Bao again. We already saw this in Bao's section. Back in the DMs, Nano would end this conversation by saying, no regrets, honestly. This series of DMs was Red trying to showcase to us that he didn't manipulate Nano to cancel anything, that she took this decision all by herself, even though she implied in her document in April 2025 that she was being manipulated to do so by both Red and Cinder. This was also the first time exclusivity was mentioned, and it was Nano that brought it up, not Red. Now, it is important to mention, and Cinder does that in her document, that Nano is actually following her own rules in her terms of service here. She clearly outlines on her website that she reserves the right to refund the full amount paid if she no longer wishes to work on your project for any reason. But still, I think it wouldn't be crazy to say that she was going through an internal crisis of burnout and existential dread. Unfortunately, though, the main people who had to pay the price for that were the VTubers who loved her art the most. The ones that were willing to pay thousands of dollars for it.
Yeah, dude.
Now, if we're going to be objective, Red's behavior here was fairly reasonable. He saw someone he calls a friend go through such a crisis.
For the first time in this entire document, I think Red did nothing wrong. And it even pains me to say that. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth to say, but it's very true, and I honestly, wholeheartedly believe it and will say it. I think Red did nothing wrong here. Nano, of her own volition, just canceled everybody. I cannot fathom why, because that is an insane amount of money for anybody. But there it is. I feel like I don't know if I'm gonna get backlash from saying that, but bro, think of that money. I know it's not about the money, Spider-Man, but that is a lot of money, Spider-Man. That's all I'm trying to say.
Crisis while bringing up the idea of exclusivity, and he tried to help and understand where she was even coming from. Now, did he try his absolute best to stop her?
You definitely didn't try your damnedest, I will say that.
From making such a big decision, though, one that could probably be very damaging to her reputation? That's arguable.
Definitely not.
But he did recommend that she keep the commission of at least one VTuber in particular because he thought that would further her brand's reach. The last thing I'll say about the subsection is that I'm not sure whether Red was truly joking when he said the phrase about Silver regarding exclusivity, saying unless it was Silver in regards to paying her to just cancel commissions. But at this point, it's no secret. Even Cinder wanted Silver to stop working with Nano, and she's already admitted it in this 1,000-page document. So whether he was joking or not doesn't change anything. Right?
It doesn't
they
matter at a certain point. It just doesn't matter, right?
Period. Anyway, the next 16 pages in Nano's section would be videos, DMs, and tweets, showcasing to us how Cinder not only didn't have a problem with other VTubers who used Nano models, but that she actively did collabs with them and even had some very wholesome DMs with them. The other VTubers showcased in this document were specifically YoClash and BuffBuff. We would also see how Cinder would congratulate Nano whenever she reached a new milestone, like winning the VTuber.
That is insane that she just said that, because YoClash just went live right now, as that was being said. I do want to say though, YoClash is very, 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 very nice. I don't and Bao is also not Bao. Buff is always super sweet. I've met her multiple times. She actually remembered me. She's very, very sweet. She's also super cool. But yeah. Same with Shia and Eye Candy. They've always been super cool to me, at least.
Parent of the Year award, and Red would also make it a point to praise her other work with other VTubers. Cinder would say the next event in this timeline with Nano was when she and Red made their exclusivity deal. But before we go over that, I want to address why we thought to ask her about exclusivity in the first place. There was another person we were consistently working with, and that was Artist One. They wanted to discuss a permanent paid position with us and suggested some kind of exclusivity for the work
Artist
they did.
One.
Like with Nano, Red handled any business-related discussions with them. There is more that happened with Artist One in Bao's and Silvervale's sections of this document. We of course saw what happened in Bao's section already, so this is kind of repetitive. In any case, we can see Artist One here pitching the exclusivity idea to Red and be talking about how he'd prefer a monthly salaried position over a commission by commission system. To spice the deal up, he'd say that agreeing to this would prevent him from doing things for others that are deemed Cinder exclusive, such as model visual effect work and something else that's blurred in the conversation. Red was intrigued by the idea, and this is what Cinder would have to say in the document. The next time Red and I talked about this, he said we should ask Nano for some kind of exclusivity too. Nano has suggested exclusivity to him in September, and talking to Artist One gave him the idea to ask her about it again. So the next step here would be January 15th, 2025, when we already saw most of what happened in Bao's document. Red would tell Nano not to take on new clients, and they would end up agreeing on Nano not working with Silver, Bao, or Cotton. That's it. Cinder, of course, was only aware of Red asking Nano to not work with Silver, not about Bao and Cotton. The next 20 pages
are
DMs
God,
we
bro.
saw already in
Please.
in which Red and Nano would negotiate the terms of the deal.
No wonder people couldn't get through this or didn't want to get through it. Bro, you guys repeat so much. It is actually insane. There's so much of this that didn't need to be repeated. Or maybe it did. God, I don't even know. I think I'm just glad that Mujin was the one to like pick and choose what is being shown, because if I would have had to have read that by myself, I would have just quit. Honestly, I already have hard enough time reading. I don't want to read something over and over again just to have it not matter and literally just be a repeat of everything else that I had just seen last time on Dragon Ball, right?
It would be venting about Sacramore, Bao's editor, and how he went exclusive for her.
Scaramouche?
One would include a section specifically for Silver and Bao,
Scaramouche
but Red
making
wouldn't push
another
for this to be
appearance.
changed. And how afterwards, very shortly after, less than a month later, Nano would cancel her deal and message Cinder personally to apologize.
Scaramouche.
Now we're on the 11th of April, 2025. Shortly before Cinder would be cancelled. These would again be DMs between Red and Nano, and Red would notice that Nano took on Shy Lily as a client and would ask her if she had any other models with her and others that were planned further down the line. Nano would say no, this is Shy Lily's only one, and that she needed to finish up a few things on another VTuber's model before going back to focusing on existing clients. By now, I'm sure you're aware that Red always messaged Nano to see what projects she was working on. What made this instance special is that he asked Nano specifically when Shy Lily messaged her. In other words, when did their communication begin? He's only ever done this once, as far as we know, with Silvervale. The reason for him doing it now, though, would start making sense when we'd see Red's comment in the document. He'd say, I asked Nano about Lily and her other projects just like I would any other time, and Nano gave me the information just like she would any other time. I thought that Lily getting a model from Nano could possibly be related to how she was treating Cinder lately. Here's what Cinder would say in the document. That night I saw Red and he told me Nano was working on a model for Shy Lily, but didn't say anything about him asking Nano about it, or that he would. I was happy with the idea that Shy Lily and I were going to be model sisters, especially since we're both part owners of the same company. Red thought we might have to consider that we'd be competing with Shy Lily with the way she was treating me and the fact she was working with Nano now, similar to how things were with Silvervale. I didn't agree.
Okay,
in my
good,
mind,
good.
Shy Lily and I weren't going to be competing for
I like
anything,
that. I like that.
and this
I like
would be
that. I like
another
that.
thing we'd have in common to hopefully bring us together. I was only concerned with why she would have been upset with me lately and was anxious about it. So this was pretty much just like Bao. Red took it upon himself to be the shining knight in white armor, protecting his wife from those who seek to harm her, even though according
More
to
like the shining knight covered in shit, brother. This man is preying on your downfall. Honestly. That is like the only thing I will say to Cinder. This man is trying everything in his power to make you, if he's not trying, it's definitely involuntary, but it's happening.
her, she completely disagreed with him and his logic. The next day, Red would mention
Good.
Nano
I like seeing
again.
that.
And just like the
Good.
situation with Silvervale, he would start gossiping about one of her clients in regards to Cinder, saying, "Hey Nano, do you have more plans with Lily besides just the model, like outfits or merch or anything?" Nano would say no, just the model so far. This is when Red would spill the beans and say, "Okay, her asking you for a model recently just made the antenna go up. She's been acting weird towards Cinder lately, and we don't know if something's going on." And
Wait, say that again?
Far. This is when Red would spill the beans and say, "Okay, her asking you for a model recently just made the antenna go up. She's been acting weird towards Cinder lately, and we don't know if something's going on." In the document, he'd say, "I followed up with Nano about Lily because of the way she was acting towards Cinder over the past few weeks. It really seemed like Lily had a problem with Cinder." The DMs would continue, with Red specifying that Shy Lily's weird behavior towards Cinder had begun ever since VCard launched, a trading card game featuring VTubers that was sold by Gamersubs. Nano would ask what he considers weird behavior in this case, and according to him, Shy Lily would start to dip out of collabs involving Cinder last minute, as well as more recently ghosting her messages and not thanking her by name when she'd raid her on Twitch. He was confused about this because around the launch of VCard, they were still collabing.
Which again, if you guys seen that clip of her being rated by Lily, no, not by Lily, by God, what's his name? By if you see the clip of Lily being rated by Cinder, it's really stupid that she got bent out of shape about it, because it's like she's just calling the Pyro Pups. Unless anyone else has the name Pyro Pups, you obviously know that it's Cinder.
Confirmed this since we had seen earlier how Cinder barely made it to Numi's concert because of her VCard collab with Shy Lily. Red found it suspicious how Shy Lily had stated that she wasn't looking for a new model anytime soon, and yet had reached out to Nano recently. He'd then say, I don't know, hate that we keep bringing you into drama, with a crying emoji. Here's what he had to say in the document about this. I didn't lie about anything I said here. Me saying ever since after VCard launched was because around then was the last time I remembered them collabing and talking to each other, like I said after. I remembered Lily saying it was too soon to get a new model around the start of the year, but I didn't consider the 3 to 4 months that passed when I said this. And obviously Lily changed her mind since then. The conversation in DMs would continue, with Red saying, feels like we're gonna have to compete with Lily if she's ghosting Cinder and wants the same model mama. He then dedicated an explanation to this document just for that sentence, saying, this is the only time I ever said anything to anyone other than Cinder about competing with Lily. If Lily had a problem with Cinder and at the same time started working with our model artist, then yes, we wouldn't be working together anymore. In my mind, we'd be competing with her, at the very least over Nano's time. If Lily wasn't treating Cinder differently, I wouldn't have had any reason to think the timing of Lily's model with Nano was suspect, and no reason to ask Nano anything when she started working on Lily's model. I would have felt the same way about it that Cinder did. Red would keep this conversation.
I don't believe you. I do not believe you. The reason why I don't believe you is because of how unhinged you've been about everything else. You want me to believe that this is the one time where you'd be like, all right, it's probably cool. I don't know, bud. I don't know.
Conversation going by asking more questions. Like, for example, is it just Cinder and blank you've been doing continuous model outfits for? And do you know who's rigging Lily's model? He would then apologize for all the questions and say that he has to stay informed about our top artist and how there's never a break. This is when Nano would say that he shouldn't stress too much about this, jokingly saying that it's bad for balding. Red would say he'd keep Nano in the loop when it comes to drama because he and Cinder have to stay competitive, even when they shouldn't have to. Nano would again say don't go too far on the competitiveness, it can get bad, gotta chill sometimes, and Red would say, hey, it's not us.
But it is. You specifically, actually. It is. It's you. And it sucks that it involved Cinder, but it's you, bud.
Here's how he would explain it in the document. I stayed informed with Nano's plans because of who she was to us and our brand. It's always been that way and it's never been a problem with her. I said we have to stay competitive, as in a general sense with the entire VTuber sphere, even when we shouldn't have to with someone like Lily who we thought was a friend, now acting this way. Finally, the two would switch the subject and talk about art-related stuff in regards to a Cinder model. The conversation would end with Red asking Nano about her opinion on design ideas. Here's what Red had to say in the document about that. These are my last messages with Nano. I guess saying anything about Lily was a step too far for her. I don't know why, if she thought I was lying about Lily for some reason, she didn't ask me to verify what I was telling her instead of leaking our messages. I never asked, told, implied, or said anything to Nano about not working with Lily or canceling her model she already started, and I had no intention to. Cinder would also show us the final message she had sent to Nano on the 15th of April 2025 with no response from Nano, asking, hi Nano, would you want to come on my stream again sometime? Cinder would say our partnership was terminated before Nano's document was posted, but not by her. This would lead us to the final event that had occurred in this section.
Okay, here we go, finally.
Cinder would send her final message to Nano around the 15th and 16th of April 2025. Cinder would say, 3 days after Red's messages with Nano about Lily, and about 10 hours after my message above, Red was added into a group chat by Nano with her new manager. Red was told that effective immediately, Nano would be taking an indefinite hiatus from working with us due to burnout, and explaining away why Red hadn't heard from Nano in days. We knew Nano's manager had always been her husband Mio, so him being replaced and Nano coming to this decision out of nowhere made no sense. I was never added into this chat and wasn't even aware of it happening until the day after when Red talked to me about it. Red would chime in and say, Nano added me to this chat originally since this was the first time I'd ever been in contact with this other person. At the time these screenshots were taken, Nano had already left the chat. The Discord messages of her adding me into the chat and her leaving were gone, and I was apparently made the group owner. Nano never sent a message in this chat and was the original group owner. So just like Red had mentioned, he'd be introduced to Akira suddenly and would find out that Nanolis was going to be taking a break from working on large-scale commissions for Cinder. Akira, who was the new manager of Nano, would say that this decision wasn't made lightly, but was brought forth due to burnout. The entire thing was described as a temporary shift, with Akira stepping in only because Nano struggled to find the right words. Red was of course shocked, but tried to be as understanding as possible, saying that if that's what Nano wants, then he's fully supportive of that. He would mention that the project he was working on with Nano wasn't large scale. It was a fairly small model update and wondering if that would be affected too, to which Akira would specify that everything will be on hold until at least July 2025. The next day, Red, no doubt still really shocked, would message the group chat again asking for more clarification. He'd ask, is Nano taking a break from commissions in general for the next few months due to burnout from back-to-back projects and then things will resume as normal, but maybe with more time between new things? Or after her break, has she decided not to work with us in the scale she has been now, only to take on our projects sparingly so she can pursue other things? Thanks for the help. Akira wouldn't be very helpful, giving very vague answers, saying it's still too early to say, but I believe that when she comes back, she'll be doing smaller scale projects first before transitioning to bigger ones. Red was still wondering, would she still be able to take on projects? Red would again ask, given the timeline, let's say she's back in July, there's something that Cinder needs that needs to be completed by August. Can she actually do that? Would there be enough time? He needed a concrete answer so that he can figure out the next steps for that project. He'd also say, and one more thing, were there any other factors from her perspective that led to this decision besides artistic burnout? Akira would say, I'll bring it up with her. I'm thinking we might have a clearer answer by June regarding a potential start date for the Demon model update, which was the project Red was referencing. Otherwise, it's probably a bit too early to have that conversation with her. Bear in mind, we were still in April 2025, right? Akira would then say, no, as far as I understand, it's really just a case of artistic burnout and the pressure she feels to prove herself. Red would explain in the document, I asked Akira more questions and tried to speculate on some kind of timeline when Nano may possibly be able to work with us again, since this threw off our plans for the rest of the year. Then I asked specifically if there were any other factors from her perspective that led to this decision besides artistic burnout, thinking my conversation about Shy Lily with her could have had something to do with this. I was reassured it was just burnout and artistic pressure. Now I know I was right to suspect this. The conversation would continue, with Red wondering if he and Cinder should start looking for a new artist. Akira would say that they completely understand if they can't wait for Nano to recover from burnout and would even assist them in finding a new artist if possible. Red would express that he was simply confused about all of this because to him, Akira made it sound like Nano was breaking up with Cinder, making sure to specify that if she truly only needed a few months to recover, they'd wait for her. An hour later in these conversations, Red would say that Cinder is very distressed after he broke the news to her, while asking for a confirmation that when Nano returns, she would still be willing to work with her. Akira would again give a very vague and non-reassuring answer, mentioning how it's too early to tell, and how once Nano is ready, be it months or a year from now, then he and Cinder will get contacted.
Oh yeah, this is definitely. I feel like I don't know if I want to call this now or if I want to call this later. I do want to say that it feels like she probably got I don't know if you want to say she probably got influenced by somebody else as they were talking about the whole situation, and they probably told her something about her messages or something like that. I don't know. This is my speculation right now so far. Let's just keep going.
Again. Cinder would
see if
say
that pans out.
After Akira's messages, I was heartbroken, distraught, and didn't know where to go from here. Akira asked for Nano to not be contacted, and despite everything, I still respected Nano enough to not reach out if that's how she felt. Red reassured me that things would be okay and that we'd work with Nano again when she was ready. There was nothing that I could think of as to why Nano would come to this decision, and without saying anything to me at all, I canceled my fancy stream I was supposed to have that night, and she would show us the 2 posts she made, canceling that stream. In this message, Cinder would say the sub-only stream is canceled tonight because she received some bad news and doesn't have the energy to stream right now. Cinder would say if this was truly what Nano was feeling, even if we were completely unaware of it and she chose not to talk to us at all about it, we still accepted her decision with hopes of working with her again in the future. I was extremely hurt by how Nano went about this. She didn't even give us the courtesy to explain herself after years of working together, and instead sent someone we've never even heard of to say goodbye for her. The last message above was 5 days before Nano posted her document. In these DMs on April 21st, it will be read saying that Cinder was very hurt that Nano hadn't chosen to talk with her directly about this, that both him and Cinder understood that yes, burnout makes sense sense since Nana was really overworking herself with so many projects.
Right.
Overall,
That
they just feel like this could have been handled better, or hell, even a compromise that made both sides walk away satisfied, instead of having a long-time relationship feeling like it was upended overnight. He would also reveal that due to the uncertainty of the
I do feel like this would be something Nana would do after reading all these messages, because it feels like Nano could probably be pushed around pretty easily, or even like not manipulated but swayed. So as someone like that, I feel like they would be pretty, it would be really tough for them to give bad news. So they would probably just tell people, hey, can you help me with this? I really need to get out of this. I can't do it. And probably the secure person was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll help you out. And that's probably how that worked. But this is, again, speculation. I don't know if he ever explains it or if anyone ever explains it, but this is what it looks like to me after, like, having, like, a small glimpse into her personality, right?
future, he and Cinder began discussing backup plans with other artists. Akira would reply with a very PR answer, saying, I'm also truly sorry the situation came up so suddenly. Nano has been bottling up her feelings for quite a while, and it unfortunately led to a recent emergency hospital visit due to the stress.
Jeez.
So I don't know whether this is true or not. I don't know if Akira just made it up to calm Redacted down, but in any case, 5 days later, Nano would post her document about Cinder. In the document, Cinder would say, Red and I were together when Nano posted her document at 1:45 a.m. EST. She was the first one to post. Around this time, Red sent her a DM saying, Nano, please, but deleted it right after. I messaged her, Nano, can we talk? But deleted it too. She then removed us as friends on Discord so we couldn't contact her again. So yeah, this entire situation seemed to have been
At least commit to the message, dude. Come on.
radioactive and was plagued by gossip and unprofessionalism. It shows us that even though we're dealing with very big amounts of money and projects that can touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, it still managed to involve high school level antics. I really wonder what you think when it comes to Nano's situation from Cinder's perspective. I wonder if this changed your mind about anyone involved here, and I wonder if you're starting to rethink your life, seeing how far you've made it into this video.
Shut the fuck. Okay, whatever.
In any case, I would recommend silencing those thoughts in your head because we still have a lot to cover, with the next section being about Shy Lily, meant to be directly seen after the whole V-Card and Numi concert incident.
So let me give my complete thoughts on Nanolist, the Nanolist situation. If I were to just think about it and talk, okay, let me just freestyle this real chat. Let me break it down for you one time real quick, okay? I'm even like detaching my microphone so I can kind of stare up at the ceiling and think about this. The thing about Nanolist is that it feels like Red was just slowly but surely poisoning her opinions of other people. But that just shows more on Nanolist that she could be easily swayed by the opinions of others. I don't know how true that is. Again, this is just my opinion. This is just how I see it. It seems like she was very easily swayed. Maybe, I don't know if she's just like a pushover like that. And if that's the case, that sucks. And sure, it's probably better that she didn't fully go with like the whole drama thing. But like, at the same time, I don't know. Like, if you're just constantly shit-talking somebody else, especially to someone who is easily not manipulated, but easily swayed like that in their opinions, I do gotta put that blame on you, right? You did this for hours and hours and hours. Knowing Red, I feel like he knew what he was doing. Because there's no way he's not that psychotic and this is the one time he just so happened to not know what his influence would do on another person, right? So Nanolist is wrong for how she presented herself and how she's a victim and how they were just constantly, hey, do this, hey, cancel everybody, hey, leave this, leave that. I literally watched her in real time drop $50,000. I can't get that out of my mind, and especially when I'm giving my opinion on something like this. However, Red definitely had to have played a part because she feels like she's easily swayed. Yeah, that's how I feel about that. So Nanolist definitely didn't present it as she did in her document. However, again, like I was saying through that entire time, you guys spent more time making yourselves look terrible and showing how incompetent you are with communicating with someone who's probably in the other room, that a lot of your problems could have just been fine had you just communicated with each other or with the other person. I probably have enough time for Shy Lily. Let's keep going.
Get to it. All right, so Shy Lily's section would actually be a mere 25 pages.
Sure.
It was definitely weird how one of the main instigators that Cinder claimed drew into her life only had 25 pages in their section. Well, that would be because the next section, titled The Breakdown, meant to be more of a recap of everything we've seen so far, would unofficially, like halfway through, become a continuation of Shy Lily's section. Yeah, I'm telling you, this document...
Okay, wait. If that's the case, I think I will end it here. Because the breakdown goes more into Shy Lily. So we'll probably continue this sometime over the weekend. Like today as I'm uploading this would be Thursday. We'll do it Saturday because then I can upload. I could just sit down and I have the weekends off basically. So I'll sit down and do the rest of it. Model and all. Getting through the rest of this, chat. So I'm going to call it here, chat. Let me know how you guys feel about this. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you gamers in the next one. Bye.